Chapter 696. Song Qing-shu was stunned by Huang Rong's action, but he thought that it was Mrs. Tang's emotional performance, so he felt a burst of warmth in his heart. He raised his head and kissed her red lips. Oh! Huang Rong did not expect that Song Qing-shu would suddenly kiss her. She was caught off guard and was kissed. Just as she was about to close her teeth, Song Qing-shu's tongue broke in and entwined with hers. Mrs. Tang, your little mouth is really sweet. Although Song Qing-shu's tongue was not free at this time, he still knew how to use the secret voice-sending skill, so he subconsciously praised her. When the last territory on her body was lost, Huang Rong's eyes flashed with a blank look, and then she faintly sighed. In the end, she still gave it to him. Images emerged in her mind, recalling the scene when they first met in the Jingzhou government. At that time, she was the high and mighty Chief Huang, the beloved and respected Mrs. Gua, while the other was just an unknown young man. The only thing that left a deep impression on her was his clear eyes, but that was all. At that time, how could she have expected that one day she would be pressed under him and wantonly bullied by him? Huang Rong also thought of the golden snake gathering in the cave, where the two of them teamed up to deceive Ouyang Feng, and almost made a mistake. Is this all fate? Huang Rong was at a loss. After so many crises, she had tried hard to protect her chastity, but she did not expect that in the end, that man would still enter her pure body. Brother Jing, I really tried my best. Huang Rong's heart flashed a trace of sorrow. Song Qing-shu did not know that the woman under him was the incomparably beautiful Mrs. Gua, but he greedily tasted her sweet taste. Although she did not want to admit it, Huang Rong still sadly found that his passionate kiss had moved her. Anyway, what happened tonight is only known by me. An inexplicable thought flashed in Huang Rong's mind. Since what should not have happened had already happened, why should she be shy? He had to finish his business as soon as possible so that he could escape. Thinking of this, Huang Rong finally stopped resisting her body's instinctive reaction. She stretched out her arms and gently hugged the man's broad and thick back muscles. A pair of snow-white slender legs also took the opportunity to clamp around the other's waist. Raising her snow-white slender neck, she began to passionately respond to the other's kiss after an unknown period of time. Huang Rong leaned against her head and looked at the man who had fallen asleep beside her. Her cheeks were bright red. She knew that Song Qing-shu's martial arts were extremely high. If she could not make him exhaust his energy and fall into a deep sleep, it would be impossible for her to exchange for Mrs. Tang. Therefore, she used almost all of her skills to pester him. What a monster! Huang Rong secretly spat. Thinking about how many times he had erupted in her body, her beautiful eyebrows and the corner of her eyes revealed a faint hint of worry. What if she accidentally got pregnant? However, this wasn't the time to ponder about this problem. When Huang Rong saw that Song Qing-shu had finally fallen into a deep sleep, she hurriedly tiptoed down from the bed. As soon as she landed, her legs suddenly went limp, and her entire body almost fell down. Looking at her still, trembling legs, Huang Rong glared at the man on the bed. Tonight was really a big loss. He almost killed me. Taking a deep breath, Huang Rong finally got used to it. First, she fumbled for her clothes in the dark. When she was about to put them on, she suddenly found that her underwear had been torn in half. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and annoyed. What a rude man. Hastily putting on other clothes, she stuffed the torn underwear into her arms. She couldn't leave any traces of her presence at the scene. After tidying up her clothes, Huang Rong ran to the wardrobe and carried Mrs. Tang back to Song Qing-shu's side. She hurriedly untied Mrs. Tang's clothes. In the dark, Huang Rong accidentally touched Mrs. Tang's body. She had to admit in her heart that this vixen really had a good figure. No wonder that bastard Song Qing-shu was so infatuated with her. After arranging the scene, Huang Rong was about to leave when she suddenly froze. She felt something warm flowing out her skirt. Biting her lower lip, Huang Rong walked back to the side with a dark face. She reached out and touched her skirt, then wiped the thing in her hand on Mrs. Tang's body. It's all your fault for making me suffer so much tonight. As Huang Rong wiped, she secretly rejoiced that she had almost left a trace. If there was no trace of sex on Mrs. Tang's body the next day, both of them would probably be suspicious. Finally, the scene was arranged flawlessly. Huang Rong didn't want to stay in this place any longer. Her figure flashed, and she ran out. After returning to her secret meeting place in the beggar gang, the first thing Huang Rong did was to ask her subordinates to prepare a large bucket of hot water for her. Looking at the woman on the water surface with a peach blossom on her face and watery eyes, Huang Rong was completely different from the woman from a few days ago. Huang Rong knew that it was all because of that bastard's hard work. She couldn't help but feel sad. She fell to the side and cried. Until dawn, Huang Rong kept washing in the bathtub. Finally, when her skin was red and even faintly painful, she fell asleep in tears. When Song Qing-shu woke up the next morning, he only felt that he had never felt so refreshed. Looking at Mrs. Tang curled up in his arms, he couldn't help but smile and cover her with the quilt again. "You must be tired after being tossed around in bed all night." Song Qing-shu looked at her with pity and carefully got up. After saving Mrs. Tang from Wanyan Liang last night, Song Qing-shu felt that it was necessary to check on Wanyan Liang again. Even though he had used the soul transfer technique on him, it was hard to guarantee that nothing would go wrong. If the Jin Kingdom's people became suspicious, it would be terrible. Last night, Tang Quobian had told him that Wanyan Liang and his people did not know of his existence. Therefore, this was an extremely advantageous situation. If his whereabouts were exposed because of what happened last night, it would be bad. On the way, Song Qing-shu suddenly thought of Huang Rong. He didn't know when she would be able to deal with the matters of the beggar gang. Why did he need to discuss a complete plan with her to rescue Guijing? But what he didn't know was that Huang Rong had returned last night and had been pressed under his body to train fiercely all night. As soon as Song Qing-shu left, Huang Rong entered the courtyard. In fact, she had been here for a long time. After all, she was still worried about her husband's safety. But she didn't know how to face Song Qing-shu, so she had been lingering nearby and didn't dare to enter. Seeing that Song Qing-shu had left, her courage finally returned. In addition, she thought of a flaw in her plan last night. She had to take care of it before Song Qing-shu left, so she quietly sneaked into the room, dividing line. Thanks to the monthly votes of board book friend, Yang Zheng, Su Yivan, Zerzbin, and others. Zongheng, if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section of the official website or in the reader group. Zongheng VIP Reader Group, 31628959, 4 Zhongyue Panda App Group, 19698878 General Group, 5244433728. Chapter 697. Looking at Mrs. Tang, who was sleeping sweetly on the bed, Huang Rong couldn't help but sigh. What a beautiful woman! After a person's acupuncture point was hit, it would automatically be unblocked a few hours later, so Mrs. Tang's acupuncture point had already been unblocked. However, it was late at night when the acupuncture point was unblocked, so she instinctively went back to sleep. Reading a book, hearing the movement beside her, Madame Tang opened her sleepy eyes and saw a charming young woman standing in front of her. Even Madame Tang, who had always been conceited, was amazed by the charm that she exuded. However, she quickly recovered. Although the woman in front of her was beautiful, looking at the anger in her eyes, it seemed that she did not come with good intentions. Someone, Mrs. Tang, subconsciously wanted to call for help, but before she could speak, she saw a pair of beautiful gem-like eyes. "Look at me. Look at me." Huang Rong stared closely into Mrs. Tang's eyes, and her voice began to become faint. It turned out that after Huang Rong went back last night, she had been bathing until dawn. The gradually colder water made her slowly calm down. She finally realized that there was a huge flaw in her previous plan. The next day, when Song Qing-shu told Mrs. Tang about what happened last night, Mrs. Tang would definitely be confused. Although Huang Rong had arranged the scene perfectly, perhaps Mrs. Tang would only think that she was too tired to remember something and would not suspect anything. However, Huang Rong could not take the risk. After all, Song Qing-shu was a meticulous person. If he saw a flaw in Mrs. Tang's reaction, last night's efforts would be in vain. Want to read? Book? Thinking about how she had endured Song Qing-shu's violent assault for a whole night to prevent her identity from being exposed, Huang Rong felt ashamed and resentful. She had already sacrificed so much, so how could she make a mistake at the last stage? At this time, Huang Rong was like a red-eyed gambler. She had no way out, so she could only bet everything she had. Therefore, she had been lingering nearby. After Song Qing-shu left, she came in and performed the soul transfer technique on Mrs. Tang, telling her everything that happened in this room last night. Over the years, although Huang Rong had the complete 9 manual, due to her personality, she did not practice it diligently. As a result, her attainments in this area were far inferior to her husband, Guijing. However, when it came to the fancy martial arts of the 9 manual, Guijing was far inferior to her. The great art of shifting souls was such a fancy kung fu. Guijing was an upright person and felt that this kung fu was crooked, so he had never practiced it. However, Huang Rong was very interested in it. She had practiced the great art of shifting souls to 70 to 80%. Although it was limited by her internal energy, making it difficult for it to be effective against an expert, it could be used against a pampered noble lady like Madame Tang, who did not know the slightest bit of martial arts. Seeing that she had successfully captured Mrs. Tang's soul, Huang Rong began to engrave the events of last night into her mind bit by bit. Worried that the slightest mistake would cause the entire plan to fail, Huang Rong did not let go of a single detail. Not only did she remember every word that Song Qing-shu said, she even remembered the positions that he had used to bully her from beginning to end. When Huang Rong finished and came out of the house, the cool breeze in her face made her realize how hot her cheeks were at this moment. Because she had just repeated the events of last night, at this moment, the scenes of the fierce battle from last night kept flashing in her mind. Thinking of that man's brutality, his wildness, and the occasional gentleness and consideration, Huang Rong felt her legs turn to jelly. She did not dare to continue thinking about it. She quickly covered her face and hurried away. Song Qing-shu did not know what had happened in the room. All his energy was focused on how to avoid being discovered by Wanyan Liang's expert subordinates. He made his way to Mrs. Tang's original room and found that Wanyan Liang was no longer there. Song Qing-shu was startled and hurriedly looked elsewhere. Finally, he found traces of Wanyan Liang in Tang Quobian's study. Song Qing-shu crouched under a remote window and quietly listened to what was happening inside. Useless. All of you are useless. Have you still not found Tang Quobian's whereabouts? An angry voice suddenly rang out. It was Wanyan Liang reprimanding his subordinate. This subordinate is useless, a trembling voice said. It was obvious that the subordinate was filled with fear. Continue to search for him. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. If you still can't find him by today, don't come back to see me, Wanyan Liang said coldly. Yes, Your Highness. Soon, Song Qing-shu sensed that a few people had left the room in a hurry. Not long after, Wanyan Liang's voice rang out again. Sir Murong, did you find any clues on the bodies of those men of sacrifice? Reporting to Your Highness, I checked the wounds on their bodies. All of them were killed with a single slash. The murder weapon was the saber in their hands. It was obvious that as soon as they encountered the enemy, their sabers were snatched away by the enemy. Then, in the blink of an eye, the enemy killed all of them. This person's martial arts are so high that it's rare to see someone in Jianghu. An old but calm voice replied. Song Qing-shu secretly nodded. This person was Murong Fu's father, Murong Bo. Although he was a bit crazy, his eyesight was extremely accurate. In just a few words, he was able to describe everything that had happened last night as if he had seen it with his own eyes. This person was able to silently kill my men of sacrifice in my residence, which is filled with experts. Then, he successfully kidnapped Tang Quobian. Who is it that wants to make things difficult for me? A crisp sound rang out. It should be Wanyan Liang throwing the teacup in his hand to the ground. Your Highness, do you think it could be someone from the Emperor's side? Murong Bo's voice sounded uncertain. Wanyan Liang sucked in a breath of cold air. That's not impossible. The room quickly fell into a strange silence. Song Qing-shu secretly thought that under the peaceful appearance of the Jin Kingdom's palace, there were treacherous waves. The emperor and this Wanyan Liang were obviously afraid of each other. He estimated that in the near future, the two of them would come to an end sooner or later. Actually, I suspect that the other person could be the person who rescued Huang Rong last night. Wanyan Liang snorted. Whenever he thought of Huang Rong's flirtatious appearance and figure, he would have a belly full of evil fire. You've ruined my plans several times. If I find out who it is, I'll tear your body into 10,000 pieces. Your Highness, please be at ease. Guo Jing is in our hands. Huang Rong will walk into our trap sooner or later. Murong Bo clearly knew what the other party was thinking. His words hit the nail on the head. Wanyan Liang laughed loudly. Mr. Murong, if we can successfully capture Huang Rong, I'll give you a great merit. Thank you, Your Highness. The room rang with ambiguous laughter. Song Qing-shu continued to listen for a while. When he couldn't find any meaningful information, he quietly left. Returning to the courtyard where his room was located, Song Qing-shu suddenly turned around and stared at the rockery beside him. A beautiful woman with a peach blossoming face flashed out and stared at him coquettishly. Dividing line. Thank you to my book friends HJH 501. Don't think of floating life Sama. Yuloajia love around the corner. Chung Shujian. Yang Zheng. Please use truth. Nangong Ju. Ambercat and others for their monthly votes. Dividing line 2. Once again, thank you to all the friends who voted this month. February's monthly votes are the most votes I've ever received for this book. Thank you. Chapter 698. Little Sister Rong. Song Qing-shu's eyes lit up as he happily trotted over. Looking at the bright smile on the man's face, Huang Rong's face alternated between red and white. She secretly snorted in her heart. Now he looked so sunny and modest, but last night he was like a beast that only knew how to move on me. Men really can't be judged by their appearance. Huang Rong trembled when he called her little sister Rong. She subconsciously took a step back to keep a distance from him and said in a slightly flustered manner, Don't call me that. Song Qing-shu's smile suddenly froze on his face. Weren't you fine yesterday? Did something happen? Thinking of how hard he had tried last night to get her to agree to call him that, Song Qing-shu's face became gloomy. This woman was too fickle. Did she still want him to save her husband? Of course, he didn't dare to say what was in his heart, lest he leave the impression that he was taking advantage of others. Looking at Song Qing-shu's aggrieved expression, Huang Rong really wanted to cry, but had no tears. It was clearly her who was aggrieved, okay? Last night, she not only became his little sister, but also his little sister. But what happened in the middle of the night, Huang Rong would rather die than talk about it. So, she could only snort with a straight face. Song Qing-shu felt that the other party was simply inexplicable. However, when he thought that she was probably in a bad mood because of her husband, Song Qing-shu felt relieved. He was a man, so he had to be magnanimous. Little Sister Rong, have you dealt with the matter of the beggar gang? But understanding was one thing. Listening to her words was another. It was obvious that Song Qing-shu was very thick-skinned. He wouldn't give up the power he fought for last night just because of a cold look from the other party. Hearing him call her little sister Rong so intimately, Huang Rong was also numb. She thought in her heart, anyway, he's already taken advantage of me, so there's no loss if he takes advantage of me verbally. So I let him be. Huang Rong nodded in response. Clearly, it was impossible for her to treat him well after what happened last night. Song Qing-shu was confused. He didn't know what he had done to offend her, but the yard was obviously not a good place to talk. Let's go inside. It will be troublesome if someone sees us in the yard. Huang Rong had this intention. Although Mrs. Tang was in the room now, she actually wanted to watch with her own eyes to ensure that the whole thing did not reveal any flaws. Even if something went wrong at that time, she could remedy it at any time. At this time, Mrs. Tang had already woken up and was dressing up. When she saw Song Qing-shu return, she smiled at first, but when she saw the young woman behind him, who was as handsome as herself, her smile froze. After being used the soul-shifting technique, Mrs. Tang forgot that she had actually seen the other party before. At this time, she was like a cat whose territory had been invaded. She ran to hold Song Qingshu's arm without a trace and looked at the bright and charming young woman with vigilance. Song Qingshu, this is... Although she was someone else's wife, she and Song Qingshu had been glued to each other for the past 2 days. She had long regarded him as her own man. Coupled with Huang Rong's brainwashing just now, she thought that she had been intimate with Song Qingshu last night, so she called him Song Qingshu with sincerity. Huang Rong was very smart and immediately saw that Mrs. Tang's action was deliberately showing off. She couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. Who wants to compete with you for this stinky man? But when she saw Mrs. Tang holding Song Qingshu's arm with a sweet expression, for some reason, Huang Rong felt a flash of irritation in her heart. She didn't know why, but she secretly cursed. Fox, don't you like to hear me tell stories about Jianghu? Is this the famous Huang Rong, heroine Huang? Song Qingshu smiled and introduced her to the two beauties. This is Mrs. Tang. Huang Rong, Mrs. Tang exclaimed. There were not many people in the world who hadn't heard of the story of Guijing and Huang Rong defending Xiangyang. Huang Rong nodded slightly. Hello, Mrs. Tang. Hello, Mrs. Guo. Mrs. Tang forced a smile. She didn't know why, but she subconsciously didn't like the woman in front of her. Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. Hearing the two beauties call him madam, he couldn't help but secretly praise in his heart. Someone else's wife really has a strange kind of temptation. Madame Tang has been conquered by me, but I don't know if I have fate with this Madame Guo. Go and prepare some tea and snacks. I have something to discuss with Mrs. Guo. Song Qingshu smiled and patted Mrs. Tang's butt. Madame Tang couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Although she was still a little unhappy with Huang Rong's appearance, Song Qingshu's actions undoubtedly proved that she was the mistress of this place. Thinking of this, she felt relieved. She swayed her waist and went out to prepare. Song Qingshu's little trick just now didn't escape Huang Rong's eyes. She secretly cursed in her heart. What a shameless couple. Huang Rong said with a faint smile, Prince Song has a good temperament. Aren't you afraid that this Jean beauty will go to Wanyan Liang and tell on you? Song Qingshu chuckled and said with a proud expression, This is Rome. Sister, there is something you don't know. I don't have other skills, but as long as a woman has slept with me, there will be no other man in her heart. These days I have completely conquered her. Now she loves me to the bone. How could she be willing to tell on me? In fact, Song Qingshu was not usually such a vulgar person, but when he saw Huang Rong sitting upright like a young married woman, he couldn't help but want to deliberately tease her. This bastard is really shameless. Huang Rong heard this and blushed, thinking of the man's bold words about how as long as a woman has slept with him, there will be no other man in her heart. She almost couldn't help but refute. Humph, I have also slept with you, but I still think of Brother Jing in my heart. Of course, this kind of words could only be thought in her heart. She didn't dare to say it out. But as she was led by Song Qingshu and recalled the scene last night, she couldn't help but feel a burst of heat in her body. This bastard does have some ability. Huang Rong gently bit her lips. Although she was unwilling to admit it, Song Qingshu's extraordinary talent, coupled with his tireless and barbaric charge, had indeed left a very deep impression on her. I wanted to betroth Fu to him in the past. Fortunately, I didn't say anything. Fu Er's delicate body can't withstand such a rough attack from him. Huang Rong's face turned even redder when she thought about how she had been a married woman for many years and how her body had already matured and plump. In addition, she had cultivated the Nine Sutra, so her physique was much better than that of an ordinary girl's. However, she had almost been tortured to death last night. Seeing that Huang Rong didn't fly into a rage after hearing his provocative words, but instead lowered her head shyly, Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. Could it be possible? Looking at that face that was even more beautiful than a peony, a thought suddenly arose in Song Qingshu's mind. Should I help him save Guojing? Dividing line. Thank you, book friends. Cut off slack. Dust Seal Dream by Zay 145, Juju 3360, Chung Shu Jian, Master Shiman 265, 2418. So's, Yi Xiao Miao, Ghost Fight 3-3, Diulaja, Memories of the Northern Hemisphere. Board playing Soy Sauce 8, Color Espencer, Flower Pierces My Heart. Alone Under the Heavy Fog, Shuyu 19981501 Square. Inch, Luda 8001, Aimed at the Concave, Hulawa Scholar, Yang Zheng, Please Don't Make Trouble 0, Nangong Ju, 378385038, PAS Color RBY Pine. Chapter 699. Song Qing-shu had done such a thing before. When Luo Bing was arrested in the Forbidden City because of her husband, he took the opportunity to play with Luo Bing. But now Song Qing-shu's temperament was not the same as before. He didn't care about his previous means. Moreover, Huang Rong was not a stupid woman like Luo Bing who would use her body as a bargaining chip to save her husband. Want to see? One ka. Should see for Song Qing-shu himself. He didn't want to leave Huang Rong an impression of a despicable and shameless person who took advantage of others. In the long run, it was not worth it. But now, looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, he couldn't help but feel tempted. Although he promised to help her save her husband, there would be opportunities to let Gui Jing have an accident on the way. Song Qing-shu quickly threw this thought to the back of his mind. Even without Huang Rong, he would still try his best to save Gui Jing. Although he didn't quite approve of some of Gui Jing's methods, he admired his persistence. He did it even though he knew it was impossible. Song Qing-shu was full of admiration for those who could do what he couldn't do, so he quickly dispelled the tempting idea in his heart. The reason why people were different from animals was that people had their own moral system and values. Although he was more likely to kiss Huang Rong when Gui Jing was in trouble, he still decided to save Gui Jing. Huang Rong didn't know that her husband's life was in the hands of a man. She was also confused now. She didn't know whether this bastard was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. He kept using such dirty words to molest me. Knowing that she couldn't go on like this, Huang Rong hurriedly changed the topic. Have you thought a way to say my husband? She really only thinks about her husband. 1K1, K, A, Shu CC. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly and hid his strange thoughts in the bottom of his heart. He replied, I've already gone to Hero Gua's prison to investigate. That place is heavily guarded, with sentries every few steps. In addition, Ouyang Feng is always by Hero Gua's side. If a strong enemy were to invade, he could control Hero Gua at any time. At that time, Hero Gua's life or death would be up to him. At such a close distance, no one in the world has the ability to save Hero Gua from Ouyang Feng unscathed. Ouyang Feng hates us. Now that Brother Jing is in his hands, I don't know how much suffering he will suffer. When Huang Rong thought of the torture her husband might suffer, she couldn't sit still anymore. She paced back and forth in the room, her beautiful face full of worry. Sister Rong, you don't have to worry too much. Wanyan Liang needs Hero Gua alive. No matter how reckless Ouyang Feng is, he wouldn't dare to kill Hero Gua. At most, he would torture him a little. Hero Gua is one of the top heroes in the world. He can handle this little bit of torture. Song Qing-shu saw that Huang Rong was panicking and stood up to support her shoulders, comforting her. When Song Qing-shu's hand touched her shoulder, Huang Rong trembled and instinctively dodged to the side. She looked at him with lingering fear. Song Qing-shu didn't expect Huang Rong to have such a big reaction. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sister Rong, believe it or not, I really didn't mean to take advantage of you. I just wanted to comfort you. 1K1, Ka, N, Shu CC. Huang Rong's face reddened. What, haven't you taken advantage of me before? Of course, she would never say this out loud. She could only smile awkwardly. Young master's way of comforting me is too shocking. Song Qing-shu shrugged and said helplessly, I almost forgot that in this era, there is a rule that men and women should not touch each other. Where I come from, a man lending his shoulder to a woman to lean on is a very effective method of comfort. If little sister Rong wants to cry, big brother can lend you a shoulder. Huang Rong's face reddened, and she couldn't help but spit. If I remember correctly, young master's hometown is Wudong. It's not far from Xianyang. I've been in Xiangyang for so many years. How come I've never heard of such a custom? Huang Rong was secretly angry. This person really didn't change. He was always thinking of ways to take advantage of women. Hearing Huang Rong's answer, Song Qingshu was stunned at first. Then he sighed in a barely audible voice. The hometown I'm talking about is my previous life. What? Huang Rong was startled. She didn't hear him clearly. It's nothing, Song Qingshu smiled. I just thought of a way to save Hirogwa. Really? Huang Rong's anger suddenly turned to joy. She looked at him excitedly. But it depends on how much Sister Rong is willing to pay. Song Qingshu looked at her meaningfully. Huang Rong's heart jumped when she saw his expression. Her expression became somewhat unnatural. What do you mean? That Wanyan Liang has obviously coveted you for a long time. If Rong is willing to spend a night with him, rescuing Hirogwa will be as easy as flipping your hand. Song Qingshu said as he looked at her with a smile that was not a smile, waiting to see how she would react. You. Huang Rong was so angry that her whole body was trembling. If I were to offer myself to Wanyan Liang, why would I need to discuss this with you? Huang Rong's heart was filled with disappointment. She didn't expect Song Qingshu to come up with such an idea. Actually, before last night, she had a good impression of Song Qingshu. Even after what he had done to her last night, she didn't blame him too much. Instead, she vaguely saw him as a man who was second only to her husband. She didn't expect him to ask her to accompany another man. Thank you, Prince Song, for saving my life last night. I won't trouble you anymore. I'll take my leave now. Huang Rong expressionlessly turned around and left. Huh? Song Qingshu didn't expect Huang Rong to have such a big reaction. He immediately became anxious and used his lightness kung fu to block the door. Huang Rong's movements were too hasty. When she saw Song Qingshu standing in front of her, she couldn't stop in time and bumped into his chest. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat when he felt a warm and fragrant body in his arms. He quickly gathered his thoughts and helped Huang Rong up. Rong, I was just joking with you. Why did you have such a big reaction? Surrounded by his familiar manly scent, Huang Rong couldn't help but think back to last night when he held her in his arms and ravaged her. Her legs felt like jelly. Borrowing his strength, she quickly steadied herself and said in a flustered voice, Don't call me that. But you agreed to call me that last night. Song Qingshu's face was full of pride. Huang Rong immediately became anxious. I only allowed you to call me Little Sister Rong. I didn't allow you to directly call me Rong. Rong, all these years, the only person who had ever called her, that was her husband. Losing her virginity last night had made her feel very sorry for Guijing. She didn't want another man to call her by her name. What's the difference? Song Qingshu couldn't understand a woman's thoughts. In his opinion, Little Sister Rong was a lighter choice. He couldn't understand why she could accept Little Sister Rong, but not Rong. I don't care. You can't call me that. Huang Rong stomped her feet. Song Qingshu was captivated by her girlish demeanor. He couldn't help but sigh. Rong, you're so beautiful. How could I bear to let Wanyan Liang take advantage of you? Even if you have to sacrifice yourself to save Guijing and Rong, you should sacrifice yourself to me. Dividing line. Thank you to Book Friends or Peasant for your support. Thank you to Song of the Rain, AFD Wei Wei Tun, PAS Color RBY Pine, Long Night, for 691966369, Eulogia, Inlay Beats Warcraft, BTH 1118, OO Pepper, Yang Zheng, Maple Hidden, Waiting for Blood Cow to Get Stronger, Willow Catkin, Pawn Breeze, F asterisk 9527, 0 Degree Frog, Q5933, O5154, Amber Cat, VS Color S, Green Bamboo Leaf, and others for their monthly votes. Chapter 700. Huang Rong felt that her heart was about to jump out of her chest. She thought that something had gone wrong and that Song Qingshu knew everything that happened last night. 1. Reading. 1. Seeing Huang Rong's pale face, Song Qingshu panicked. Rong, you know that I like to talk nonsense. Don't take it to heart. I was just joking with you. Huang Rong finally felt relieved. She couldn't help but have a naughty thought. She bit her lip and looked at the man in front of her. If I really sacrifice myself to you, can you guarantee that you can save Brother Jing? Song Qing-shu was stunned at first, then became ecstatic. Of course, I'll save Hirogwa even if I have to risk my life. Noticing that Huang Rong's face had turned cold, he finally came to his senses. He coughed and put on a serious face. Rong, I was just saying that to make you feel better. Am I that kind of person in your heart? Don't worry, with our friendship, I'll definitely do my best to save Hirogwa. Huang Rong's cheeks were dyed with a layer of red, and her smile became extremely strange. Why does it seem like you're that kind of person? Rong, you must be mistaken. Song Qing-shu looked embarrassed and immediately straightened his chest. I'm an upright person, a gentleman among gentlemen. Gentlemen. Huang Rong spat. In fact, she really thought that Song Qing-shu was a gentleman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so relieved to take off the soft hedgehog armor and sleep on his bed last night. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? Thinking of his vigorous appearance in bed last night, Huang Rong's face turned red. From then on, she could no longer associate the man in front of her with the word gentleman. 1. Reading? Book 1. But thinking of Song Qing-shu's excited expression, Huang Rong suddenly had a thought. If I really reach the end of the line, I can only tell him what happened last night. Humph! With my appearance and identity, I was played by him for an entire night. It's not too much to ask him to take a little risk, right? As soon as this idea came to her mind, Huang Rong blushed. She couldn't help but secretly despise herself. Huang Rong, how could you have this idea of exchanging? In this way, how are you any different from those prostitutes who sell their bodies? When Huang Rong came back to her senses, she saw Song Qing-shu blankly staring at her. She couldn't help but tremble and hurriedly said, Have you thought of a way? If not, I'm leaving. Don't, I've thought of it. Seeing that Huang Rong was about to leave again, Song Qing-shu anxiously grabbed her hand. Because of what happened last night, Huang Rong wasn't so sensitive to him taking advantage of her body. Plus, her attention was now focused on him saying that he had a way, so she couldn't help but ask in surprise, Tell me quickly. A trace of slyness suddenly flashed in Song Qing-shu's eyes, and he whispered, Everything has its own destiny. I'm afraid it won't work if I say it. Huang Rong couldn't help but become gloomy. You're trying to fool me. In all honesty, I really have a way. Seeing that Huang Rong still didn't believe him, Song Qing-shu hurriedly swore, If I can't think of a way, then I won't be able to touch a woman's body for a year. What messy oath. Want to read? 1. See? Huang Rong's face turned red, but she believed him 80%. After all, such an oath wouldn't have any effect on others, but it was an extremely poisonous oath to this big pervert. But if you don't tell me, how will I know if it's true or not? Huang Rong believed it was one thing, but she always planned before she acted. How could she dare to put all her hopes on someone else? But I'm really worried that it won't work if I say it. Song Qing-shu said with a bitter face, This is the only way I can think of. If it fails and Hirogwa can't be rescued, I'll be guilty. How can it be so evil? Huang Rong couldn't help but frown. Are you worried that the walls have ears? But with your martial arts, you won't be able to hide it from your ears, even if there's no one within 100 feet radius. Song Qing-shu said with a serious face, For people like us, when our martial arts reach a certain level, we can already faintly touch the heavenly Tao, so naturally we will have some understanding. I'm sure you've heard, Ronger, that Buddhist enlightenment can't be verbally taught by a senior monk, but can only be achieved by oneself, right? Because once it's verbally taught, the senior monk's own Tao will lose its effect. Huang Rong couldn't help but nod slightly. There was indeed such a phenomenon in history. Since ancient times, those famous senior monks, or wise men, did not teach their own Tao to their disciples after they had comprehended it themselves, but instead guided them to comprehend it themselves. So this was the reason. Then what should we do? Huang Rong was secretly shocked at the same time. Could it be that Song Qing-shu had already reached such a level? How about this? Come closer to me, and I'll whisper it to you, Song Qing-shu replied. As the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. Huang Rong was afraid that the plan to rescue Guijing would go awry. Although she had a vague feeling that something was wrong, she still let Song Qingshu lead her to lean against him. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and sat on the stool. He reached out and pulled Huang Rong, who couldn't stand still, and fell into his arms. Huang Rong was shocked. Just as she was about to get up, she heard Song Qingshu's voice in her ear. "Rong, don't move. I'll tell you now." Song Qingshu's voice became softer and softer. Huang Rong was worried about her husband, so she unconsciously moved her ear closer. Looking at the crystal-clear earlobe in front of him, Song Qingshu's breathing quickened. At this moment, all reason had completely lost its effect, and he kissed her. Huang Rong's whole body tensed up, and she said in a trembling voice, "Is this what young master meant by telling me?" Song Qingshu originally regretted his impulsiveness. He thought that she would immediately become hostile, but he didn't expect her to react like this. He couldn't help but become more courageous. He used the tip of his tongue to gently play with her sensitive earlobe, and whispered in her ear, "This is the only way to deceive everyone." Just who are you trying to deceive?" Huang Rong actually knew in her heart that she had most likely fallen into Song Qingshu's trap. She didn't know why, but being in his arms like this, her whole body felt lazy, and she actually didn't want to get up. Heavenly Tao. Song Qingshu was not satisfied with her ears, and his lips gradually began to move along her slender snow-white neck. "Don't do this." Huang Rong tightly grabbed the big hand that wanted to reach into her clothes. "The plan is like this." Seeing that Huang Rong's resistance was becoming more and more obvious, Song Qingshu knew that if he didn't give her some sweetness, she would probably get up and leave in the blink of an eye. Listening to his plan, Huang Rong's pair of beautiful eyes were full of brilliance. She had to admit that although this man was lustful and shameless, he was really very capable. Although Song Qingshu deliberately slowed down his speech, the plan itself was based on the word clever, and it wasn't considered complicated. Therefore, it didn't take long for him to finish the plan. Huang Rong no longer had an excuse to stay in his arms. After taking a deep breath, she faintly sighed and said, "Hey, can you let me go now?" Dividing line. Thank you to ZZ33XXB and Penglai General Bookstore for your monthly tickets. If readers have any comments and suggestions, please leave them in the comments section of the official website or in the reader group. Zongheng Genuine Readers VIP Group, 316-28959, 4 Zhanyue Pan App Group, 1969888784. Chapter 701. Song Qingshu was actually very curious about Huang Rong's reaction. Logically speaking, she should have already turned against him for treating her like this. However, Huang Rong remained silent. He was a bastard who did not take advantage of others. Naturally, he would not be stupid enough to give up the great opportunity in front of him. In the beginning, he had some scruples and only dared to pretend to speak in Huang Rong's ear, accidentally touching her earlobes. But after a while, Song Qingshu saw that Huang Rong did not respond, so he suddenly became bolder. He was no longer satisfied with that kind of touch, but gradually began to kiss the back of her snow-white neck, cheeks. In fact, Song Qingshu was also very uneasy when he did this. He was afraid that Huang Rong would turn against him and cause the relationship between the two to completely break down. But as his actions became more and more excessive, Huang Rong actually did not have any reaction other than her skin gradually turning red. Could it be that in order to save her husband, she purposely let him take advantage of her, so that he could do his best to save her? An idea flashed through Song Qingshu's mind. On one hand, he admired Huang Rong's willingness to sacrifice for her husband, but on the other hand, he was secretly vigilant. I have so many female friends, and there must be many who are willing to sacrifice for me. For their innocence, I have to be careful at all times, lest I become a prisoner of other men and cause them to be threatened. In his previous life, Song Qingshu had seen a lot of such plots on TV. The life and death of the male lead was in the hands of the villain. The female lead, or the second female lead, in order to save the male lead, had no choice but to sacrifice her chastity and let the villain play with her. The most outrageous was a certain TV series. He couldn't remember the name, but the strange plot left a deep impression on him. The first, second, and third female lead were all raped by the villains for various reasons, but the male lead didn't even get to touch their hands. What the F***CK is this? Song Ching-shu cursed under his breath. He didn't know what was wrong with the Chinese TV scriptwriters in his previous life, but they always liked to NTRING the female lead. It left an indelible shadow in his innocent heart. In this world, I don't want to be a stupid male lead. I want to be a winner in life. Song Ching-shu hugged Huang Rong and swore in his heart. Hey, can you let me go now? Huang Rong's faint sigh woke Song Ching-shu up. Feeling Huang Rong struggling to get up, Song Ching-shu couldn't bear to let her go. He tightly hugged her waist, feeling the warmth and softness of her body, and softly said, Ronger, let me hold you for a while. Huang Rong secretly felt bitter. She let him take advantage of her, but he wanted more. Seeing Huang Rong raise her eyebrows, Song Ching-shu knew that she was on the verge of exploding. He quickly diverted her attention and said, Ronger, why do I feel that the fragrance on your body is so familiar? Which store did you use the powder from? Huang Rong's heart skipped a beat. Damn it, she didn't expect to see a flaw in this. However, she quickly realized that Song Ching-shu was just asking casually. He didn't really have any doubts, so she hurriedly replied, Isn't the fragrance powder used by women almost the same? That seems to be true. Song Ching-shu smiled embarrassedly. He wasn't that sensitive to the differences in these scents, so he didn't continue to ask. How much longer do you want to hold me? Huang Rong knew that if the two of them continued to be so intimate, it was hard to guarantee that Song Ching-shu wouldn't find other flaws. After all, her body still had the traces of him ravaging her last night. To tell you the truth, I want to hold Rong like this for the rest of my life. Seeing Huang Rong's face covered with a layer of frost, Song Ching-shu hurriedly raised his hands. I'll let go. I'll let go. Huang Rong snorted and stood up from his arms in a somewhat embarrassed manner. Huh. Previously, when he was holding Huang Rong from behind, he didn't notice it. Now that Huang Rong was facing him, from her slightly open clothes, Song Ching-shu's sharp eyes saw that there seemed to be some red marks on her neck and near her collarbone. Ronger, what happened to your neck? Are you injured? Song Ching-shu subconsciously walked over to check. Huang Rong was startled. She hurriedly covered her collar and took a step back. It's nothing. Song Ching-shu frowned. Ronger, I'm not trying to take advantage of you. It's just that you fought with the masters under one Yinliang yesterday. If they left hidden energy on your body, it would be terrible. The sooner you find it, the sooner you can treat it. What hidden energy? These are obviously the marks left by you last night. Huang Rong was so angry that she kept stamping her feet, but she couldn't say this to him. She could only smile unnaturally. You worry too much. Don't forget that no matter what, I'm still the leader of a gang. How could I not know whether I'm injured or not? It seems that I worry too much. Song Ching-shu thought that what she said made sense. He couldn't help but nod with a bitter smile. I'll go prepare the things we need to save people tonight. Huang Rong covered her collar with one hand and used the other to lift up the hair that was a little messy because of Song Ching-shu. She hurriedly left after leaving these words. Looking at the delicate figure, Song Ching-shu was deep in thought. What if those red marks weren't caused by hidden energy? Thinking of this, Song Ching-shu couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. They looked more like hickeys. Soon it was nighttime. The peaceful Kaifeng city suddenly became noisy. In the provincial governor's mansion, one Yinliang frowned and hurriedly asked his subordinates, What happened outside? Your Highness, it seems that several places in the city have caught fire. Caught fire? Wan Yinliang was deep in thought. Where are the places that are on fire? The south, north, east, and west of the city all seem to have caught fire. All four directions are on fire at the same time. Wan Yinliang sneered. I'm afraid that someone deliberately set the fire. Your Highness, it seems that the Kaifeng city's water dragons are stretched thin. Should we send someone to help the prefectural magistrate of Kaifeng? Wan Yinliang shook his head. Don't worry. Although the fire looks powerful, it won't be long before it is extinguished. This is obviously a ploy to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Pass down my order. Everyone is to guard their posts in case someone tries to break into the prison. Yes, Your Highness. Opening the window, Wan Yinliang looked at the flickering flames in the distance and smiled playfully. Huang Rong, is that you? Thinking of Huang Rong's beautiful face and the mature charm of a young married woman, Wan Yinliang felt something 3 feet below his lower abdomen heat up. Speak of the devil. Just as Wan Yinliang was imagining Huang Rong under his body and having fun with her, Huang Rong's voice came from not far away. Wan Yin bastard, let go of my husband. Although Huang Rong's voice was full of anger, Wan Yinliang was still subdued by her clear and melodious voice. He wondered how tempting it would be to be woken up with such a beautiful voice. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless search, but by chance you find it by chance. Wan Yinliang was determined to get his hands on Huang Rong. Seeing that she had walked right into his trap, he couldn't bear it any longer and hurriedly ran out. At this time, a few of his subordinates heard the commotion and came out to investigate. Seeing Wan Yinliang, they secretly surrounded him. Wan Yinliang looked up and saw a fairy-like figure standing on the wall not far away under the hazy moonlight. Her hair was tied up in a Lingyun bun, making her look dignified and elegant. Her 2 curved willowy eyebrows and her sorrowful and resentful eyes made the hearts of all the men in the courtyard tremble. They didn't know what was bothering this stunning beauty. She wore a dress that was as clear as blue water, and a silk ribbon was tied around her waist, making her look tall and slender, elegant and refined. She stood on the wall, her black hair and green dress fluttering in the wind. She had an otherworldly aura. What a peerless beauty! This was the consensus of all the men present. They wished they could hug this fairy-like figure in their arms and caress her. However, they knew in their hearts that this peerless beauty could only belong to one person tonight, and that was the Si Ling King, Wan Yinliang. Madame Gua, we meet again. Looking at Huang Rong's full chest, Wan Yinliang's eyes flashed with greed. Humph, I wish I could never see you again. Huang Rong coldly replied. Wan Yinliang didn't care about her words and didn't rush to have his subordinates catch Huang Rong. At such a close distance, he was confident that Huang Rong wouldn't be able to escape his grasp. If Huang Rong really escaped, the super experts under his command would really be so embarrassed that they would buy a piece of tofu and commit suicide. I'm afraid this wish will be difficult to fulfill. Madam is destined to be entangled with me for the rest of your life. Wan Yinliang laughed proudly. Shameless. Huang Rong coldly looked at him. Wan Yinliang's expression became solemn, and he lightly said, whether you're shameless or a dog thief, your husband's life is in your hands. As long as you're willing to spend the night with me, I'll immediately let Hero Gua go. But if you dare to say no, Mr. Ouyang has long wanted to kill you. Tonight, I'll make Gua Jing's head roll on the ground. Dog thief, die. Huang Rong was obviously angered by his obscene conditions. Her figure flashed, and she waved the dog-beating stick towards him. Wan Yinliang took a step back and chuckled. Capture him alive. Murong Bo grunted. He took a step forward and stood in front of Huang Rong. Huang Rong's exquisite dog-beating stick technique was unexpectedly neutralized by his bare hands. Seeing that the number of Jin Kingdom's imperial bodyguards was increasing, Huang Rong shouted in a tender voice, Wan Yin dog thief, I'll let you live for a few more days. After saying that, her figure flashed, and she used the momentum to fly out of the mansion. Wan Yinliang suddenly became anxious. Madam, do you want Gua Jing to die tonight? Hearing his words, Huang Rong's figure paused for a moment before she replied, If Jing Ji dies, you will never have me. Finishing her sentence, she tapped the ground with her toes and jumped off the wall. Hearing Huang Rong's tone soften, Wan Yinliang was overjoyed and quickly ordered, Mr. Morong, Mr. Chiao, young Hero Yang, quickly catch Huang Rong and bring her back for me. Murong Bo and Chiao Qianren grunted and quickly chased after her. However, Yangwu didn't seem to have any intention of moving. Wan Yinliang's heart flashed with a trace of displeasure, but he quickly recovered and said, Young Hero Yang is indeed righteous. I know that you and the couple are old friends, so you don't have to worry about this matter." Yang Wen nodded and looked in the direction where Huang Rong disappeared. His eyes were filled with indescribable emotions. After a moment of hesitation, he turned around and left. Dividing line. Chapter 702. Seeing him leave, Wan Yinliang knew that he had an eccentric temperament, so he didn't bother with him. At this moment, his mind was focused on Huang Rong. He was afraid that Murongbo and Qiu Qianren wouldn't be safe enough, so he hurriedly called his warriors and ordered them to chase after her. After Huang Rong jumped off the wall, she didn't run away immediately. Instead, she hid in the shadows and looked at the woman in front of her. Her clothes and hairstyle were exactly the same as hers. She couldn't help but laugh and say, "You're quite good at pretending. Ronger, we're familiar with each other, but if you laugh at me like this again, I'll get angry." Song Qingshu looked at her with a gloomy face and said, "I've sacrificed so much for you, but you're still laughing at me." Huang Rong tried to hold back her laughter and said, I won't laugh. But she couldn't help it. Seeing Song Qingshu's pale face, she quickly said, "They're chasing after you. You should run quickly. I'll settle this with you later." Song Qingshu raised his fist threateningly, but he already heard the sound of clothes fluttering in the air. He knew that Wan Yin Liang's experts were chasing after them, so he didn't dare to stay here any longer. He hurriedly used his lightness kung fu to run away. "She's over there. Quickly chase after her." Qiu Qianren was known as Iron Palm, floating on water. Other than his pair of iron palms, his qigong was also the best in the world. Therefore, although he started later than Murongbo, he was the first one to reach the courtyard wall. Seeing a green shadow flashing not too far away, he recognized Huang Rong's back and hastily called the others to chase after her. Seeing the group of people disappear into the distance, Huang Rong, who had been hiding in the shadows, quietly came out with a complicated expression on her pretty face. The dignified Golden Snake King, one of the world's top experts, was actually willing to disguise himself as a woman in order to save my brother Jing. In ancient times, saying that a man behaved like a woman was the biggest insult. In the past, Zhuge Liang used a woman's clothes to humiliate Sima Yi for being a coward and not going to war. Sima Yi was so angry that he almost couldn't bear it. Of course, Huang Rong knew these rules. Seeing that Song Qingshu had sacrificed so much, she was moved. She even thought, he did this for me, so I'll make it up to him last night. She even wondered if Brother Jing would disguise himself as a woman for her. Huang Rong quickly shook her head. Brother Jing was an indomitable hero. Why would he wear women's clothes? Even though Huang Rong had convinced herself, she still felt a little lost. She knew that in her husband's heart, the country and the people were the most important. If he had to choose between her and Xiangyang, he would probably give up his love for the greater good. Although Huang Rong could understand her husband's choice, she was a woman after all. Which woman didn't need her husband's unreserved love? Which woman didn't want her husband to go against the world for her? Ronger, are you worried about me? After an unknown amount of time, Huang Rong, who was in a daze, suddenly felt a breath of hot air blow into her ear. Huang Rong was startled at first. Even though she was a little distracted, it was really not right for her to not notice that someone had bullied her. However, she soon relaxed. Who else but Song Qingshu would talk to her like that? "Can't you talk to me properly?" Huang Rong instinctively took a step back, leaving a relatively safe distance between the two of them. She then rolled her eyes at Song Qingshu. "What's wrong with talking like that?" Song Qingshu shrugged disapprovingly. "If you want to have a serious conversation, don't you think it's enough with your brother Jing?" Huang Rong held her breath. She didn't want to compare the two of them, so she quickly changed the topic. "You shook them off so quickly." "Of course." Speaking of this, Song Qingshu's face was full of pride. He raised his head and snorted. "Although my martial arts aren't the best in the world, I have two skills that are the best in the world. One of them is qigong. Looking at the whole world, I am the best. Green-winged Bat King Wei Yixiao and Dongfang Bubi are the best. As for the others, they can slowly find their own places." Just now, Song Qingshu used the moonlight to disguise himself as Huang Rong. He lured all the experts under Wan Yin Liang out of the city. At first, he didn't dare to use Qing Gong too much in case the pursuers couldn't catch up. But when they were far enough away from the city, he didn't hold back anymore and shook them off in the blink of an eye. After losing track of Huang Rong, Qiu Qianren, Murongbo, and the others would definitely need a long time to find her. By the time they realized something was wrong, the time they spent on the way back would be enough for Song Qingshu to save them. Looking at Song Qingshu's high-spirited appearance, Huang Rong suddenly thought of a poem, "When the wind blows, the horse gallops." It's good to be young. Huang Rong secretly sighed. Although she wasn't that old, she and Guojing had spent all these years protecting Xiangyang. It made her feel like a beauty past her prime. Being with Song Qingshu, she unconsciously felt like she had returned to the time when she was a young girl. She once again experienced the carefree feeling of the past. "Look at how proud you are." Huang Rong was mischievous. She deliberately cooperated and asked, "Then may I ask, young Master Song, what other kung fu is the best in the world?" Song Qingshu smiled strangely and whispered a few words in her ear. Huang Rong's pretty face immediately turned red. She was so angry that she raised her fist to hit him. Song Qingshu laughed and innocently said while dodging, "Kung fu in bed is also kung fu. You should tell this kind of nonsense to your Mrs. Tang. Don't pollute my ears." Huang Rong deliberately put on a serious face, but her heart was beating fast. Thinking about how she almost fainted last night, she had to admit that his kung fu in bed was probably the best in the world. "But I like to say to Rong, Huang Rong looked up and saw Song Qingshu looking at her with a playful expression. She couldn't help but panic and hastily coughed. "We'd better hurry up and save Brother Jing. It would be bad if we wait for those people to react." Song Qingshu didn't want to push her too hard. Seeing this, he nodded and said, "Okay, let's go save Hero Gua." Looking at his hand in front of her, Huang Rong was slightly startled and asked, "What are you doing?" Song Qingshu said seriously, "Of course I'm carrying you. Otherwise, with your lightness skill, how could you sneak into the prison without a sound?" Huang Rong knew that what he said made sense, but she still felt a little hesitant to let him hold her in his arms when she was still conscious. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and said, "Ronger, why are you so shy? It's not like we haven't hugged each other before." Huang Rong was shocked. Her first thought was that he knew what happened last night, but she quickly realized that he was talking about what happened between them at the Golden Snake meeting. Seeing Huang Rong's hesitation, Song Qingshu didn't care whether she would be angry or not. He stretched his arm and put it around her waist. Chapter 703. Song Qingshu embraced Huang Rong's soft body, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. It smells good." Surrounded by that demonic aura, Huang Rong's entire body instantly went limp. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, she couldn't help but faintly sigh. "Prince Song, I still think you're too young to be my younger brother. Do you think this is interesting?" "Of course it's interesting." Song Qingshu smiled slightly, and then his expression became solemn. "Ronger, you can say anything about me, but you can't say that I'm too young. You're clearly younger than me?" Huang Rong was slightly startled. She didn't understand why he had such a big reaction. It wasn't until she saw his winking expression that she finally reacted. She couldn't help but secretly spit. Despicable. She had experienced it firsthand last night. Indeed, no matter what standard she used, it had nothing to do with being a little girl. Huang Rong didn't want to talk about such a shameful topic with him. She hurriedly said, "You're a young hero. Who knows how many beautiful girls in the world like you? Why do you have to obsessively pester a married woman like me?" "I like married women," Song Qingshu replied boldly. Huang Rong was completely dumbfounded. She didn't know how to respond at all. Song Qingshu was worried that she would react and fly into a rage. He hurriedly said, "Don't talk anymore. Let's go save your husband." Finished speaking, he wrapped his arm around Huang Rong's slender waist. With a light tap of his toes, the two of them leapt up to the top of a nearby tower. A biting cold wind blew, and Huang Rong's delicate skin couldn't help but be covered in a layer of fine particles. She subconsciously shrank into Song Qingshu's embrace. Forced back by the boiling heat of his chest, the chill in her body immediately dissipated. Only then did she ask, "What are we doing at such a high place?" Hugging Huang Rong's slender waist, Song Qing-shu could keenly feel her waist brimming with vitality. He could even feel the warmth and smoothness of her skin. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but secretly sigh in admiration. Guo Jing really had good luck with women, to be able to hug such a stunner to sleep every day. However, he didn't expect that Guo Jing, who was usually busy with state affairs, would rarely share a room with Huang Rong in recent years. Even if they slept together, it was usually because he was too tired and fell asleep as soon as he laid on the bed. How could he be like Guo Jing, living a carefree and unfettered life? Only when you stand high can you see further. Song Qing-shu had a mysterious smile on his face as he quietly stared at the military governor's residence in the distance, observing the gaps in their guards. Seeing that he did not speak, Huang Rong suddenly began to feel a little uncomfortable. The heat from Song Qing-shu's body made her body unknowingly have a strange reaction. It must be known that she had always been chaste. In her life, she had never been hugged by a man other than her husband. In addition to the events of last night, Huang Rong felt that her legs were a little weak. "How much longer do you want to hug me?" Huang Rong knew that she could not continue like this and couldn't help but bite her lip coldly. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Lowering his head to see that her face was as cold as frost, he suddenly smiled strangely. "Since Rong doesn't want to be hugged by me, then I won't hug you." Before Huang Rong could react, she felt her entire body become light. After a moment of absent-mindedness, she suddenly discovered that she had been thrown out of the tower by Song Qing-shu. Unable to understand why Song Qing-shu suddenly wanted to kill her, Huang Rong's mind was completely blank, and she could only instinctively scream. But before her voice could leave her mouth, her lips were blocked by a scorching hot and dry mouth. Huang Rong opened her eyes to see that Song Qing-shu's smiling face was right in front of her. Being embraced by Song Qing-shu, she was no longer free falling like before. Instead, the two of them were like night falcons, quietly gliding high up in the sky towards the heavily guarded military governor's residence. Huang Rong had not yet recovered from the shock. Looking at the man in front of her, she felt as if an electric current was flowing through her body. Suddenly, she felt an indescribable feeling of being moved. At this moment, her body was high up in the sky, and everything around her was silent. At this moment, Huang Rong felt as if she had left the world and stood alone. At this moment, whatever etiquette and defenses were all thrown to the back of her mind. She no longer thought that she was someone else's wife. At this moment, the only thought in her mind was to passionately respond to the man in front of her. Her hands hooked around his neck, Huang Rong gradually closed her eyes, allowing him to wantonly taste her fragrant tongue. Looking at the beautiful woman in his arms who was allowing him to do whatever he wanted, Song Qing-shu secretly sighed. Knowledge is indeed power. So the drawbridge effect is actually this useful. The drawbridge effect was a scientific phenomenon from his previous life. When a person was on tenterhooks crossing a drawbridge, their heartbeat would involuntarily increase. At this moment, if they happened to meet someone of the opposite sex, then they would mistakenly think that the person in front of them was the other half of their life, and thus develop feelings for them. In the end, people would mistakenly think that the accelerated heartbeat caused by various kinds of dangerous situations was a physiological reaction caused by the other party moving their heart. Thus, they would develop feelings of love for the other party. Just now, Song Qing-shu had purposely thrown Huang Rong down from the high tower, and then saved her when she was in despair. In such a short moment, she experienced life and death, and from death to life. No matter how intelligent Huang Rong was, she was still a woman. In that kind of situation, all of her defenses would instantly collapse. As it turned out, Song Qing-shu's guess was right. Huang Rong really did change her normal behavior, and even raised her chin to cooperate with his kiss. Song Qing-shu knew that at this time, even if he wanted to go a step further, Huang Rong would most likely not refuse. Unfortunately, no matter how capable he was, He could not complete the entire intimate process in such a short period of time. If only I were Superman. I could directly fly around the world with Huang Rong in my arms. There would be plenty of time to do whatever I want. Song Qing-shu thought indignantly. But no matter how unwilling he was, the two of them still landed on the ground. The attention of the guards in the residence was all outside. Who would have thought that someone would directly come down from the sky? Thus, Song Qing-shu picked 2 guards and hid in a blind spot. The guards not far away did not notice anything out of the ordinary. When her feet landed on the ground, Huang Rong seemed to be suddenly pulled back to the real world. Her entire body trembled, and she pushed Song Qing-shu away. Her face alternated between green and red. She asked hesitantly, "Just now, why did you kiss me?" "I wanted to kiss you, so I kissed you." Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. "You." Huang Rong felt a burst of anger. "But I have a husband." Song Qing-shu shrugged. "I don't mind, but I'm mine." Huang Rong couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She didn't know why, but it was very difficult for her to really get angry. "All right, in order to prevent your pitiful moral values from breaking, I will give you a reason." Song Qing-shu's expression became serious. "The reason we were able to successfully sneak in was because we caught them off guard. If you kept screaming just now, weren't you clearly telling the guard below to be on guard? How could we save your husband then? It was clearly you who took advantage of me. But in the end, it was my fault?" Huang Rong cursed in her heart, but hearing him say this, she really felt better. She said with a red face, "This time, I will let it go. In the future, without my permission, you are not allowed to kiss me like just now." Dividing line, speaking of which, many readers have privately asked me what the name of the TV series mentioned in yesterday's chapter is. Where is your moral integrity? Knowing that it is so poisonous, you still rush to watch it. Chapter 704. Song Qing-shu realized that he really did not understand women. The fact that he had been kissed did not change anything. All he had to do was change the excuse, and the other party's attitude changed from angry to barely accepting. Thinking about the meaning behind Huang Rong's words, his expression became even more strange. "So according to Rong, as long as you agree, I can kiss you?" Only then did Huang Rong realize the loophole in her words. She quickly replied, "Even if I agree, you can't kiss me?" "No, how can I agree?" Seeing Huang Rong's rambling, Song Qing-shu smiled playfully. "That's not necessarily true. I believe that one day, Rong will allow me to kiss you." Seeing Huang Rong's expression change slightly, he quickly changed the topic. "All right, let's go save Hero Gua." Huang Rong was not in the mood to argue about her husband's safety. She nodded solemnly. "Stick to the plan." Song Qing-shu reminded Huang Rong and then covered his face with a black cloth. Finding a gap and seeing that the surrounding patrols were not paying attention, he floated into the prison like a gust of wind. Before the guards in the prison could react, he struck their acupoints and subdued them in an instant. When Huang Rong followed him in, she looked at the guards who remained motionless along the way. She couldn't help but secretly click her tongue. This bastard's lightness skill is too terrifying. Fortunately, I'm not his enemy. Huang Rong did not realize that deep in her heart, she had subconsciously regarded Song Qing-shu as one of her own. Not far away, Huang Rong heard an angry shout. She recognized it was Ouyang Feng's voice and hurriedly ran over to help Song Qing-shu. Not long after, she saw Song Qing-shu and Ouyang Feng fighting not far away. Seeing her come in, Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, "Quickly go save Hero Gua." When Ouyang Feng saw Huang Rong, he couldn't help but be enraged. If it wasn't for her, Ouyang wouldn't have died. Ouyang Feng himself had been crazy for more than 10 years because of Huang Rong. If he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be worthy of being called the Western Poison. Therefore, he did not care about Song Qing-shu at all, and directly used the toad stance to pounce on Huang Rong. Before he arrived, the biting cold wind from his palm had already made Huang Rong breathless. In a panic, she hurriedly raised the dog-beating stick in front of her, but she also knew that in the face of Ouyang Feng's full-strength attack, it would be very difficult for her to resist. Song Qingshu's eyes, he knew that if he allowed Ouyang Feng to attack, Huang Rong's life would be in danger within a few moves. Thus, he pushed off the ground with the tip of his foot and rushed forward to protect Huang Rong. Hurry up and save them. Ouyang Feng attacked with hatred, so Song Qingshu had no choice but to treat him with caution. In the blink of an eye, the two of them exchanged several palms. The wind from their palms shook the surrounding walls, and the whole prison cell shook. Huang Rong was also a quick-witted person. Seeing that Ouyang Feng was entangled by Song Qingshu, she did not hesitate and immediately ran to where Guojing was imprisoned. With just one look, Huang Rong's tears fell. At this moment, Guojing was tied to a pillar. From head to toe, there was not a single part of his clothes that was intact. His whole body was like a man of blood. It was obvious that he had suffered great torture in the past 2 days. What made her even more furious was that Guojing's scapulae were pierced by 2 thick iron chains. Piercing the scapulae was a special torture used by the government to deal with bandits. It made it impossible for them to use their strength and martial arts. It was obvious that the enemy was afraid of Guojing's martial arts, so they added such a cruel punishment to him. Thinking that her husband had suffered so much here, but she was flirting with other men and even had sex with them, Huang Rong suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of guilt and could not help but sob. Hearing the movement, Guojing struggled to open his eyes. When he saw Huang Rong in front of him, he could not help but be shocked. "Ronger, why are you here? Hurry up and leave. It's dangerous here." Seeing that Guojing was still thinking about her at this time, Huang Rong felt even more guilty. She quickly wiped her tears and said, "Jing Ji Ji, don't worry, Ronger is here to save you." After saying that, she picked up a Buddhist monk's knife next to her and cut off the shackles on Guojing's body. The reason why Guojing could still stand was because of the chains. Now that the chains were broken, he could no longer stand and his whole body fell to the ground. Jing Ji Ji. Huang Rong was shocked and quickly went over to support him. Seeing that Guojing was free, Ouyang Feng suddenly became angry. He used the toad skill to its fullest extent, but unfortunately, it was still unable to force the masked man in front of him to retreat. He could not help but roar, "Song, don't think that I can't recognize you with your face covered. Are you really going to ignore our friendship for this woman?" Having been seen through, Song Qingshu could only take off his mask and smiled embarrassedly. "Mr. Ouyang, what a coincidence. We meet again." "Coincidence my ass," Ouyang Feng said angrily. "You really want to save him?" Song Qingshu shrugged. "Mr. Ouyang, you're my friend, but Huang Rong is also my friend. Originally, I should not help either side, but she can't beat you. I am worried that you will kill her in anger, so I have to help him." Seeing Ouyang Feng's face turn as black as charcoal, Song Qingshu hurriedly added, "In fact, I treat you all equally. If Mr. Ouyang can't beat her, I will certainly help Mr. Ouyang. I am the Western Poison, one of the 5 greats of the Central Plains. How can I not beat her?" Chapter 705. Hearing her husband's words, Huang Rong's legs gave way, and she almost fainted. Reading a book? After returning to Xiangyang from the Golden Snake Conference, Huang Rong had told Guojing everything that had happened. She had also praised Song Qingshu, the rising star of the younger generation. Whether it was his martial arts or his leadership skills, he was definitely one of the best among the younger generation. Therefore, she had also mentioned her idea of matchmaking her daughter, Guofu, with him. Guofu was the apple of the couple's eye, but Huang Rong had to admit that apart from her beauty, Guofu's temper and intelligence could be said to be useless. For her daughter's future, she had been worried a lot as a mother. Until she saw Song Qingshu at the Golden Snake Conference, Huang Rong's heart was suddenly moved. If she could successfully matchmake the two, first, she could find an ideal husband for her daughter. With Song Qingshu's martial arts and ability, they would not have to worry about the rest of Fu Er's life. Secondly, they had Song Qingshu as their son-in-law. Based on his martial arts skills and the leadership he displayed in defeating the Qing army, Xiangyang would no longer have to worry about. It would also solve the biggest headache the couple had in their lives. Thirdly, Huang Rong was vaguely aware of Song Qingshu's thoughts about her. Even she herself felt that it was not worth telling others about it. Thus, she wanted to build a solid relationship between the two of them. With this mother-in-law and son-in-law relationship, it was impossible for anything else to happen between the two of them. All potential possibilities would be nipped in the bud. But Huang Rong never thought that before she could make Song Qingshu her son-in-law, she would make him sleep with her first. After what happened between the two last night, how could Huang Rong still have the thought of marrying her daughter to him? Even though she was the daughter of the Eastern heretic and was a famous demoness when she was young, this matter was still too shocking. If that was really the case, it would not just be two women working together, but a mother and daughter working together. How could Huang Rong tolerate such a ridiculous thing? But she could not tell her husband the reason, so she could only change the topic. Brother Jing, let's talk about Fu later. The most important thing now is to get you out of here. Ouyang Feng finally managed to force Song Qingshu away. He seized the opportunity and said, Brother Song, when one Yinliang asked about your identity after you rescued Huang Rong, I didn't reveal it to him for the sake of our friendship. But now you've completely turned against me for this woman? Song Qingshu saw the thick killing intent in Ouyang Feng's eyes and couldn't help but raise his guard. Among the 5 uniques, each of them had their own unique skills, and their skills were about the same. However, in a real life or death battle, the one Song Qingshu least wanted to meet was Ouyang Feng. Wang Chongyang had died young, so there was no need to consider him. Reverend Yiding of the south and Hong Qigong of the northern beggar were soft-hearted people, so there was no danger in dealing with them. Although the Eastern heretic was a little troublesome, he had his own principles and morals, and a gentleman could be deceived easily. Only Ouyang Feng was a man who would do anything. Moreover, his nickname was the Western Poison, and his skills in using poison were not inferior to his martial arts. With Song Qingshu's current cultivation and eyesight, as long as the environment was right, Ouyang Feng had the ability to kill East Heretic, Northern Beggar, and South Emperor. Therefore, he had to be careful. Brother Ouyang, there is actually no irreconcilable hatred between you and them. Why do you want to fight to the death? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. What do you mean there is no irreconcilable hatred? Ouyang Feng seemed to be provoked and roared. If it was not for Huang Rong, my Ke would not have lost his legs. If he had not lost his legs, he would not have been killed by Yang Kong. And Guojing, that stinking brat. He looks simple and honest, but he tricked me with that sly girl, Huang Rong. He used a fake 9-yin manual and tricked me into going crazy for more than 10 years. This grudge is absolutely irreconcilable. Song Qingshu replied in a deep voice, Brother Ouyang, you are wrong. Your son's legs were indeed disabled because of Huang Rong, but the murderer was Yang Kong. Yang Kong coveted your white camel manner's martial arts, but your white camel manner has always had only one master. Therefore, as long as this rule exists, Yang Kong would definitely use all means to kill your son. Even if Ouyang's legs were fine, it is easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. Sooner or later, he would still die in Yang Kang's hands. Hearing this, Ouyang Feng's face alternated between green and white. Yang Kong was already dead, and he had only wanted to kill Guojing and Huang Rong to avenge Ouyang Ku. He hadn't thought about the ins and outs of what had happened. Now that Song Qingshu had said it, even if he didn't want to admit it, he knew that it was true. Seeing that Ouyang Feng was silent, Song Qingshu continued. As for them causing you to be crazy for 10 years, it was only because you threatened them with your life and forced them to tell you the 9-yin manual. In order to protect themselves, they had no choice but to give you a fake manual. Moreover, it can be said that you have profited from your misfortune. You have successfully practiced the 9-yin manual in reverse, and your martial arts have improved by leaps and bounds. In your madness, you have accepted a young hero like Yanghua as your godson. Thinking about Yanghua, a faint smile appeared on Ouyang Feng's face, but he quickly gave a cold snort If he was someone else, then it would have been fine. He really is a good child, and I would have treated him as my own. But out of all the things I should not have done, he is the son of that bastard Yang Kong. Song Qingshu frowned. No wonder he felt that Ouyang Feng's feelings towards Yang Guo were a little strange. So there was a hidden layer of relationship. Brother Ouyang, why are you so stubborn? It is said that the grace of raising someone is greater than the grace of giving birth. Apart from giving birth to him, when has Yang Kong ever done any of his duties as a father? Yang Guo is a man of chivalry and righteousness. His character is pure and kind. He is completely different from his father. In his heart, I'm afraid he would be more willing to recognize you as his father than Yang Kong, who is cursed by tens of thousands of people. Hearing Song Qingshu praise Yang Guo, Huang Rong secretly sighed. She thought to herself that she was smart and had watched Guo grow up. But her understanding of his character was not as clear as Song Qingshu's. No wonder Brother Jing has always liked Guo. Great minds think alike. Compared to them, I can't help but be petty. Seeing that Ouyang Feng was silent, Song Qingshu hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Brother Ouyang." As he finished speaking, his figure flashed and appeared between Guo and Huang Rong. With one hand holding onto Guo's clothes and the other holding onto Huang Rong's slender waist, he used treading on the sands and disappeared from the prison. Ouyang Feng finally reacted. He couldn't help but stomp his feet in anger. But he quickly calmed down. Thinking back to Song Qingshu's hand that was holding onto Huang Rong's slender waist, a strange expression appeared in his eyes. Messing with his wife in front of her husband. I was right about you. Huang Rong, did you forget my nickname? Do you really think you can save Guo? Ouyang Feng stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking in the direction where the three people disappeared. A strange smile appeared on his lips. Dividing line. Thank you to my book friend Shiyu Jingchun, Gies Ichiyun 997 for 315, Diu Loagia, Lion Burning Winds Candle, and others for their support and monthly votes. Chapter 706. As soon as Song Qingshu's hand wrapped around her waist, Huang Rong's entire body stiffened. She guiltily glanced to the side and, seeing that her husband had not noticed his actions, heaved a sigh of relief. However, Huang Rong did not relax for long. Very quickly, her pretty face turned red and white. It turned out that Song Qingshu's hand on her waist was not being honest. As he held her, he was also rubbing her lower abdomen. Huang Rong's heart trembled, and she almost cried out in alarm. However, she remembered that her husband was beside her and that they were currently in the lion's den. She did not want to complicate matters. In any case, the one surnamed Song had already taken advantage of her, so this matter was not a big deal. She had already let down her Jing Ji. If her impulsive actions caused Jing Ji to be thrown back into prison, then she would really die 1,000 times over. Having made up her mind, Huang Rong bit her lips and allowed Song Qingshu to take advantage of her. Intentionally or unintentionally, she even twisted her body to cooperate with him, taking the opportunity to block her husband's view. Song Qingshu looked at her meaningfully, the corners of his mouth unconsciously curling up in a proud smile. As he rushed out of the imperial prison with Guijing and Huang Rong, they quickly attracted the attention of the guards outside. However, in the world of martial arts, there was nothing that could not be overcome by speed. Before the guards could surround them, Song Qingshu took the two of them and leapt out of the encirclement. Then, he led the pursuers in a few large circles before stealthily returning to the rear residence of the military governor's residence. The most dangerous place is also the safest place. Song Qingshu smiled and said to the two of them, "In a moment, one Yin Liang will definitely search the entire city. Whether you hide in an inn or a residence, it is safer than hiding right under his nose." As soon as they were out of danger, Huang Rong felt as if she had been scalded by boiling water. She pushed him away, her pretty face so red that it seemed as if water would seep out of it. Guijing did not notice his wife's abnormality. Instead, he weakly cupped his hands towards Song Qingshu and said, "Song Xiaoxia is indeed wise and brave. I cannot thank you enough for saving my life. Hero Gua is too polite. Song Qingshu hurriedly supported him. You and your wife have guarded Xiangyang all these years and are heroes admired by all Han people. When Hero Gua is in danger, we should lend a helping hand. Huang Rong, who was at the side, listened to him speak with fervor and assurance. She felt extremely strange in her heart. She had begged him to save her previously, but he had clearly looked unwilling. She had finally begged him to help, but now he was pretending to be a big shot. What's more, the covert movements of his hands along the way were not at all chivalrous. Song Xiaoxia is indeed righteous. Guojing thought of the future edition of such a chivalrous character in Jianghu, and could not help but be overjoyed. Huang Rong couldn't help but purse her lips. Brother Jing was an open and above-board person. He would only think well of others. How could he know how much of a bastard Song was? Of course, she would never say these words out loud. Brother Jing, you should treat your injuries first. Huang Rong thought of how her husband had suffered such a great loss, but still had a grateful expression towards that bastard. She felt extremely uncomfortable and did not want Guojing to continue praising him, so she interrupted him. Ronger, I'm fine. Guojing forced a smile, but from the cold sweat on his forehead, it was obvious that he was enduring a great deal of pain. Her fingertips slid across the iron chain on her husband's shoulder blade, and Huang Rong couldn't help but cry, "Who did this to Brother Jing?" And that traitor Yin Liang was afraid of my martial arts. So after he captured me, he ordered his warriors to pierce my shoulder blade. Seeing Huang Rong's tears, Guojing hurriedly said, "Ronger, don't cry. Aren't I fine now? You're already like this, and you still call that fine?" Huang Rong choked with sobs. Seeing Huang Rong cry, Guojing subconsciously wanted to reach out and wipe her tears, but he suddenly realized that there were outsiders present. He had always valued etiquette, so how could he act so intimately in front of outsiders? But letting Huang Rong cry wasn't what he wanted either. For a moment, Guojing was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. "Lady Gua, you should be happy right now. How can you cry?" Song Qingshu's frivolous voice rang out. Even though he was extremely daring, calling Guojing his wife Rong in front of him made him feel a bit guilty. Huang Rong secretly let out a sigh of relief. That bastard Song had always been absurd and unexpected. If he continued to call her Rong, she really wouldn't know how to explain it to her husband. But she quickly recalled Song Qingshu's words and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. "You say I should be happy? Brother Jing is injured like this, and you want me to be happy?" Because of the events of the past 2 days, Huang Rong always felt that Song Qingshu had ill intentions towards her. She subconsciously thought that he couldn't wait for something to happen to Brother Jing. Guojing looked at his wife in astonishment. In his heart, his wife had always been an intelligent person. It was rare to see her lose her composure. But today, she had such a big reaction, and the person she was talking to was her savior. What was going on? Seeing that Huang Rong was like an angry female leopard, Song Qingshu hurriedly said, as the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. Piercing the scapula is used by the government to deal with bandits. Although it will cripple a person's martial arts, as long as they are treated in time, their martial arts can still be preserved. Lady Gua, think about it carefully. If it wasn't for the fact that Wan Yin Liang didn't know the ropes and personally ordered for Hero Gua's scapula to be pierced, then Hero Gua's martial arts would really have been crippled. Guojing nodded and agreed. At that time, Ouyang Feng did object, but Xiao Qianren hated us to the bone because of what happened to his brother, so he persuaded Ouyang Feng. After all, the process of piercing the scapula is extremely painful, and they wanted to torture me more. Who would have thought that you would be able to save me so quickly? I really have to thank Song Xiaoxia for saving my martial arts. Huang Rong finally understood and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She stammered, "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you." Song Qingshu shook his head slightly. "Lady Gua, it's not a big deal. Let's first remove the iron chain from Hero Gua's scapula." "Thank you for your trouble." Huang Rong made an almost imperceptible sound. About 2 hours later, Song Qingshu tossed the iron chain aside and let out a long sigh of relief. The iron chain has been removed, but Hero Gua has suffered such heavy injuries. I'm afraid he'll need to rest for at least half a year to recover. Thank you very much, Song Xiaoxia. Guojing's face was covered in cold sweat. He had been gritting his teeth and holding on, but now that the iron chain had been removed, as soon as he relaxed, he suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. Hirogua, you're welcome. You've lost too much blood, so after taking the medicine, you'll need enough sleep to recover. Also, the situation outside is very tense, so you should rest here and recuperate. Song Qingshu smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you. Rong please thank Song Xiaoxia for me. After saying this, Guojing could no longer hold on and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Huang Rong put down the bowl of medicine and carefully wiped the beads of sweat from her husband's forehead. Seeing her so focused, Song Qingshu secretly sighed. What a good wife and loving mother. When Huang Rong covered Guojing with a blanket and got up, she suddenly found Song Qingshu leaning against the door, looking at her with a burning gaze. She couldn't help but blush and whisper, "Thank you." Pointing at the beads of sweat on his forehead, Song Qingshu smiled. Aren't you too insincere in thanking me? Only then did Huang Rong notice that Song Qingshu's forehead was also covered in a fine layer of sweat. She immediately realized that when he had just untied Brother Jing's iron chain, the entire process required a high degree of concentration and precise control of strength. Otherwise, it would have been easy to injure the meridians around the shoulder blades. Huang Rong had a delicate heart. She had been worried that Song Qingshu, in order to obtain her, would secretly do something to save Guojing and cause him to have some sort of internal injury. In the end, throughout the entire process, he didn't do anything. Huang Rong couldn't help but feel a surge of shame. She really was gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. She subconsciously picked up a handkerchief to wipe his sweat, but who knew that Song Qingshu would subconsciously shrink back and point at the embroidered handkerchief in her hand. He smiled and said, I'm a clean freak. I'm not used to using things that have been used by others. Only then did Huang Rong realize that she had just used this embroidered handkerchief to wipe Guojing's sweat. But she was amused by Song Qingshu's words. She thought, if you're not used to using things that have been used by others, then why do you keep pestering me? Although Huang Rong had always been very confident in her beauty, she was, after all, married, so she couldn't understand why Song Qingshu didn't go looking for a girl, but instead pestered her. I'm not a thing. No, I'm a thing. Huang Rong felt that her thoughts were in a mess. Inadvertently, she thought of the scene from last night. She couldn't help but secretly spit. When you used me last night, you didn't seem uncomfortable at all. As she thought about it, Huang Rong blurted out, when you used Mrs. Tang, you didn't seem uncomfortable either. As soon as the words came out, Huang Rong's face suddenly turned red. She never expected that she, who had always been reserved, would actually discuss this kind of topic with a man other than her husband. Obviously, Song Qingshu was also a little surprised, but he quickly recovered and couldn't help but laugh. You're someone else's wife. Naturally, I'm not uncomfortable with using her. Dirty. Huang Rong heard this and couldn't help but fiercely spit. Song Qingshu cried that he was wronged. It was you who brought up this topic with me. Huang Rong snorted heavily to show her dissatisfaction. After a moment of silence, she suddenly asked, what do you think of Mrs. Tang? She's a woman among women. As soon as he touches her body, a man can't bear to get out of bed. Song Qingshu sighed sincerely. Huang Rong's original intention was to ask Mrs. Tang what kind of person she was, but she didn't expect that Song Qingshu would suddenly go in a direct direction. However, she was already used to his language style, so she didn't make a fuss. Instead, she was hooked by a whim and pretended to ask a question inadvertently. When was the happiest time she made you? End of this chapter. Chapter 707. Song Qingshu was very surprised. He didn't expect Huang Rong to ask such a question. He couldn't help but laugh. Rong, aren't you afraid of polluting your ears? Huang Rong regretted her words as soon as they left her mouth. Her heart was thumping nervously. Hearing Song Qingshu's teasing, She subconsciously turned her back and snorted guiltily. If you don't want to say it, then forget it. Song Qingshu leaned over from behind and whispered in Huang Rong's ear. Rong, since you asked, how can I be so cruel? I can't even satisfy your little curiosity. Huang Rong could faintly feel the heat of Song Qingshu's breath on her neck. Her whole body suddenly stiffened. Although she didn't look back, she could still feel that Song Qingshu was very, very close to her. That faint sense of oppression made her heart tremble. Huang Rong subconsciously looked at Guijing, who was not far away. Seeing that he was still snoring, she didn't know why, but instead let out a sigh of relief. Don't be like this. Brother Jing is still there. I didn't do anything. The smile in Song Qingshu's voice became even stronger. Speaking of which, I'm really curious. Why wasn't your first reaction to avoid me, but to see if I woke up your husband? Huang Rong seemed to wake up from a dream. She let out a low cry and hurriedly dodged to the side. She didn't expect that Song Qingshu's hands would press down on her shoulders. A strong force passed through her, and she could no longer move. What do you want? Huang Rong was really a little panicked. Her eyes kept glancing at Guijing. On one hand, she was worried that Guijing would find out something. On the other hand, she was hesitant to call her husband for help. Huang Rong was a very smart woman. If it wasn't for the accident that happened last night, she wouldn't have hesitated at all. But the tragedy was that it happened last night. Compared to what happened last night, even if Song Qingshu took advantage of her today, it would not be a big deal. Instead, it would alarm her husband. If Song Qingshu was forced to kill her to silence her, Huang Rong shuddered at the thought of the possible consequences. Under normal circumstances, she and her husband would not be afraid of each other. But now, Brother Jing was seriously injured and could not use his martial arts. Although her dog-beating stick technique was not bad, in front of Song Qingshu could subdue her with one hand. Huang Rong had completely lost confidence in her own strength when she thought about how she had tried to resist last night, only to be pinned down by him and unable to resist at all. Now, Huang Rong was like a buyer who accidentally paid in full in advance. As for whether the seller would honor the contract and deliver the goods, she had no idea at all. Having lost the bargaining power, she could only carefully cooperate with the other party in case the other party turned hostile. I have to leave with Brother Jing as soon as possible. Huang Rong secretly made up her mind. In fact, she had wanted Guijing to rest here at first, but now she had completely thought it through. Although the Jin people were hateful, the Song people were not much better. If they continued to stay here, who knew what would happen? Don't worry, Hero Guo has been tortured by the Jin people for the past 2 days and has exhausted his mind. In addition, the medicine he just took has calming ingredients, so he won't wake up so easily. Song Qingshu continued to speak in her ear. Hearing this result, Huang Rong's mood was very complicated. She did not know whether to be happy or unhappy. She subconsciously twisted her body and said, "Let me go. Rong, aren't you curious about the private matters between me and Mrs. Tang? Why? Don't you want to hear it?" Song Qingshu had an inexplicable smile on his face. Who cares if you say it or not? Although Huang Rong said that she did not care, her body no longer struggled. Instead, she stood there quietly, pricking up her ears and waiting for Song Qingshu to continue. Mrs. Tang is a wonderful woman. Her body is plump and graceful. Her skin is smooth and tender, and her face is charming. Every time I make out with her, I am very happy. Seeing the expression on Song Qingshu's face, Huang Rong blushed and secretly spat. How shameless. Rong, do you know what I like most about her? Song Qingshu suddenly asked. How would I know? Huang Rong snorted, but her mind could not help but think of Mrs. Tang's surging breasts and her pair of white long legs. It should be these two, she added in her heart. You must think that I like her breasts or legs more. Song Qingshu seemed to be able to read her mind and continued. But you guessed wrong. What I like most is actually her identity. Her identity? Huang Rong was confused. What was so special about her identity? Yes, she is someone else's wife. An inexplicable spark flashed in Song Qingshu's eyes. Because she is someone else's wife. Every time I see her under me with a sweet and happy expression on her face, I have a great sense of conquest and satisfaction. That is what I like most about her. You are such a pervert. Huang Rong's mouth was wide open, obviously extremely shocked. Pervert? Song Qingshu shrugged. It is just a harmless little hobby. Huang Rong's heart was pounding. She finally understood why the other party had been obsessed with a married woman like her. It turned out that there was such a relationship between them. The topic that the two had talked about before was a bit explicit, but no one had ever said such things in front of Huang Rong before. Therefore, she was ashamed and angry, but at the same time, she had a novel feeling of touching a taboo. You have talked about so much, but you still haven't told me which time Mrs. Tang made you happiest. This was something that Huang Rong didn't even dare to think about, let alone take the initiative to ask a man who was not her husband. But in the end, she couldn't help but ask. Song Qingshu smiled, which made Huang Rong a little flustered. Ronger, why are you so curious about this? I'm just curious. It is none of your business. Huang Rong responded guiltily. She couldn't tell him that she actually wanted to hear that answer. But it is too much of a loss for me to reveal such a private question. Song Qingshu touched his chin and looked hesitant. Then how do you feel that you are not at a disadvantage? Huang Rong felt that she was getting bolder and bolder. She gradually put aside some of her usual concerns, as if she was communicating with a close friend. Well, let's play a game of truth or dare, Song Qingshu suddenly said. What is truth or dare? Huang Rong's pair of beautiful eyes were sparkling. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Once there was a beginning, the rest would be natural. At first, she felt that it was too embarrassing to talk about this topic with another man. But after talking for a while, she found that not only was she not disgusted by it, but she also ignited the fire of gossip. As the name suggests, it is a combination of truth and dare. Song Qingshu seemed to have returned to the time when he met with friends in his previous life. We take turns to ask each other a question. If the other person chooses truth, you must answer truthfully. If the question makes you feel awkward, you can also choose dare. Dare is to do one thing according to the other person's request. Huang Rong was very smart. Although she had never come into contact with this concept, she understood the whole process from a few words from Song Qingshu. I don't want to play this game. It is obviously more disadvantageous for women, Huang Rong said with a red face. What disadvantage? Song Qingshu said disapprovingly. If you're worried that you will be at a disadvantage in dare, then you can choose to answer the question. I won't force you. Huang Rong showed a trace of interest. She was proud of her intelligence. She thought that with her reaction speed, she could easily make up a lie. Naturally, there was no need for her to do dare. Okay, but I have to ask first. Huang Rong raised her chin. At that moment, it was as if she had returned to her youth. Of course, ladies first. Song Qingshu replied with a smile. Huang Rong was about to speak when she suddenly glanced at Guijing, who was not far away. She hesitantly said, Let's go outside so we don't disturb Brother Jing's rest. That's exactly what I wanted. Song Qingshu's answer almost made Huang Rong jump. Lowering the curtain, the two of them went outside. Song Qingshu poured 2 cups of tea. With a wave of his sleeve, the teacups were steadily moved in front of Huang Rong. Huang Rong was already used to his kung fu, so she didn't react much. She just picked up a stool and sat on the other side of the table. Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. Why are you sitting so far away? I'm not going to eat you. Huang Rong smiled sweetly. I think it's better to stay far away from you. Can we start now? Song Qingshu nodded. Ask away. I've already asked the question. Huang Rong pursed her lips, and an inexplicable look flashed in her eyes. Which time did Mrs. Tang make you happiest? Song Qingshu looked deeply in her eyes, and when she looked away uncomfortably, he replied, She makes me very happy every time, but last night she made me especially happy. Huang Rong's heart was beating wildly. She deliberately suppressed her emotions and asked expressionlessly, Why? Is this the second question? Seeing Huang Rong's angry look, he laughed. Forget it. I've just started playing, so this question is a bonus. Actually, even if I had to say the reason, I wouldn't be able to say it either. Perhaps we usually enjoy more physical pleasure, but last night, she made me experience the feeling of a fusion of spirit and desire. Last night, her breath seemed sweeter than usual, her skin smoother and more supple, and her body more supple. Especially the struggle that she unintentionally revealed and the purposefully suppressed moans. It was like a young woman from a good family being violated by a big bully. It gave me a different kind of feeling of conquest. It was simply perfect. Song Qing-shu looked into the air, as if recalling the taste of last night. Song Qing-shu didn't notice that with his evaluation, Huang Rong's pretty face became redder and redder. Her hands unconsciously twisted the hem of her skirt like a nervous little girl. Dividing line, I haven't been in a good state for the past 2 days. I'll adjust as soon as possible. I'll update more than one day. Please forgive me. Chapter 708. Don't say it. Huang Rong's voice trembled. Rong, or why are you so nervous? Song Qing looked at her strangely. I'm not talking about you. Besides, haven't you always wanted to know the answer to this question? Of course I'm not talking about me. Huang Rong exclaimed. She quickly realized that her performance was a little too revealing, so she quickly added, although I'm the one asking, your answer is too detailed. Very detailed? Song Qing didn't think so. I just roughly described the feeling. I didn't mention the specific details. If you think I didn't answer carefully enough, I can tell you from the beginning to the end. Last night when she was asleep, I sneaked in from the side. Okay. Huang Rong didn't need a look to know that she must be blushing at this moment. The burning feeling made her feel a little dizzy. She hurriedly interrupted. How can a girl listen to the secret between you two? Girl? Song Qing looked at her playfully. Rong, you seem to be 20 years younger now. 20 years old. Huang Rong suddenly looked gloomy and sighed faintly. I'm indeed old, and I can't compare to young girls. Song Qing wanted to slap herself. Huang Rong's appearance, figure, and identity were all top-notch existences in the world. The only thing that bothered her was her age. However, in Song Qing's opinion, a woman in her early 30s was at the peak of her life. However, in this world where people could get married at the age of 12 or 13, a woman in her early 30s was indeed not considered young. Rong, you're belittling yourself. Now you're at the most mature and charming stage. Even if all the girls in the world gathered together, they wouldn't be as charming as your smile. Although she knew that Song Qing was deliberately coaxing her, Huang Rong couldn't help but feel a little happy. This made her feel very strange. She used to hate this kind of glib-tongued and handsome libertine. Ouyang Ku had suffered a lot because of him, but now that she met Song Qing, why did she not feel disgusted? I'm not an ignorant girl. How can I be fooled by your flowery words? Huang Rong deliberately put on a straight face, but the slightly upturned corners of her mouth revealed her true feelings at the moment. Besides, don't tell me that those people in your family, such as the Ninth Princess and Miss Zhou, can't compare to me. Looking at Huang Rong's deliberately suppressed smile, Song Qing knew that if he answered yes, it would definitely make Huang Rong's heart ripple even more. However, he was a man with integrity after all. He couldn't do that kind of thing like belittling his own woman to please another woman. They're not young anymore. How can they be considered little girls? Song Qing smiled embarrassedly and tried to change the topic. A man who doesn't mean what he says. Huang Rong snorted slightly. However, she was a smart woman and did not harp on this issue. Song Qing saw that the situation was about to bring trouble to himself, so he hurriedly said, I've answered your question. Are you satisfied with the answer? If you're not satisfied, I can tell you what happened last night. No. Huang Rong hurriedly waved her hand. She knew how unnatural her smile was at that moment. I am satisfied. Since that's the case, it's my turn to ask. Song Qing looked at her maliciously. Huang Rong's heart skipped a beat. She knew that he would definitely ask something that she would find difficult to say. She rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. It's already late. Let's stop here for today. If you have any questions, you can continue asking them tomorrow. Song Qing's smile suddenly froze. Tonight, he had painstakingly built up an ambiguous atmosphere and made Huang Rong open her heart. If it was any other time, how could she be as bold as she was now? Tonight, there were many coincidences that led to this situation. How could there be such a good opportunity in the future? Rong, aren't you being shameless? Song Qing was extremely depressed. This lady is being shameless. If you don't like it, then bite me. Huang Rong raised her chin and turned her body. As her skirt fluttered, she was about to get up and leave. However, Huang Rong didn't feel smug for too long. She had originally planned to enter the inner room to accompany her husband, who knew that when she lifted the curtain, her eyes would suddenly darken. It turned out that Song Qing had arrived later and was already blocking her way. She couldn't stop in time and bumped into his arms. Huang Rong exclaimed. However, the exclamation stopped abruptly and only a muffled sound remained. Huang Rong's eyes widened. She didn't expect Song Qing to be so bold as to directly kiss her. By the time Huang Rong reacted, her lips had already been invaded. His tongue had pried open her pearly white teeth and was constantly teasing her tongue. At that moment, Huang Rong recalled the scene of the two kissing last night. That electric shock made her feel a little dazed. However, in the end, she didn't indulge in this feeling that made her heart race. After all, this wasn't a special situation like last night. Last night, she passionately responded to Song Qing's kiss mainly because he didn't know her identity. However, now that the two of them were face to face and her husband was just a curtain away, how could she dare to be so presumptuous? Pushing Song Qing away, Huang Rong was embarrassed and angry. What are you doing? Didn't you ask me to bite you? Song Qing had a silly expression on his face. In my entire life, this is the first time I've heard such an unexpected request. Naturally, I have to satisfy you. Huang Rong was speechless for a moment. She knew that the other party was deliberately pretending to be crazy and stupid. However, her own words were ambiguous. She didn't want to be entangled with Song Qing here, so she could only swallow this loss in silence. Get out of the way, I want to go in. Rong, this is your fault. Clearly, we agreed to take turns asking questions. In the end, after you asked me, you stopped playing. Isn't that too much? Song Qing put one hand on the curtain. Huang Rong pushed a few times, but it didn't budge. Then ask. Huang Rong knew that she was in the wrong. She snorted and returned to the table. She had already made up her mind. When the time came, she would just randomly make up a story to deal with him. He wouldn't know whether it was true or not. This is the style of a heroine, gang leader Huang. Song Qing walked over with a smile. He picked up the teapot on the table and poured a cup of tea for her. He asked casually, since you asked me that kind of question just now, let me ask you something similar. When did Hirogwa make you happiest? Please describe the process in detail. I don't have as many scruples as you do. Of course, the more details, the better. Looking at Song Qing's smiling face, Huang Rong wanted to pick up the teacup in front of her and throw it at him. With great difficulty, she suppressed this tempting thought and began to think about how to deal with this question. Hearing this question, Huang Rong instinctively began to recall everything that had happened since her marriage with Jingge. The happiest time for her had to be on Peach Blossom Island. She had been carefree and had just gotten married. Compared to her days in Xiangyang City, it was like heaven. But when it came to a specific time, Huang Rong was shocked to find that she couldn't remember. No matter how hard she tried, the scene from last night would always appear in her mind. Compared to last night, how could the previous night be considered as happiness? Chapter 709. Huang Rong's face was a little pale. She hurriedly suppressed her chaotic thoughts, took a deep breath, and said calmly, Brother Jing made me happiest when he came to Peach Blossom Island to propose. He defeated Ouyang Ku and passed my father's test. Song Qing was dumbfounded. Is that even possible? Huang Rong's eyes flashed with a sly smile. Why not? This is completely in line with your question. Song Qing then remembered that the woman in front of him used to be a troublemaker. He could not help but look depressed. Okay, you passed. Now it's my turn to ask a question. Seeing that it was so easy to deal with, Huang Rong had no more scruples. Moreover, She was really interested in this game. Ask away. Song Qing looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. Anyway, he was thick-skinned and had experienced all kinds of dirty jokes in the future. He really could not think of a reason to be afraid of her question. You have so many confidants around you. Who do you love the most? To Song Qing's surprise, Huang Rong did not continue to ask about that. Instead, she asked a very refreshing question. Who do you love the most? A trace of confusion flashed in Song Qing's eyes. Zhou Zhuo, Xia Qingqing, Icy Snow, Ajio Dongfang Mushua. Names appeared in his mind one after another. He loved every one of them, but unfortunately, even he did not know who he loved the most. It seems that I really have the potential to be a stud horse. Song Qing smiled bitterly. He quickly put away his thoughts and said to Huang Rong with a smile, I love you the most. Glib and not serious. Huang Rong obviously did not choose her words carefully. Although she knew that Song Qing was lying, her heart still pounded when a man confessed to her like this. Is this how you respond to my confession? That's so sad. Song Qing made an extremely aggrieved expression. Huang Rong could not help but laugh. I'm afraid of you. You pass this question, okay? And it's my turn to ask you? Song Qing laughed. Ask away. Huang Rong smiled. The two of them had chatted for a while and were no longer reserved and worried at the beginning. Rong, do you think that accompanying Hero Guo to defend Xianyang will give you hope of successfully retiring? To Huang Rong's surprise, Song Qing didn't ask any embarrassing questions this time. Of course there is hope. Didn't the Mongols retreat? As long as we can defeat the Jin's wild ambitions. Huang Rong was still smiling at the beginning, but as she spoke, she could no longer force a smile. The southern Song dynasty was dark, and the generals were useless. However, the nomadic countries in the north were all prospering. Their armies were full of tigers and wolves, especially the Mongols. Perhaps ordinary people really thought that the Mongols and the Song dynasty had become allies, but someone like Huang Rong could clearly see that the Mongols were only retreating in order to advance. The next time they made a comeback, they would definitely win. Huang Rong thought about it, but could not see the way out of Xianyang. Well, hope was there. In the past, she subconsciously avoided this question. As long as her family could live together, she would be happy every day. But now that Song Qing brought it up, she could no longer avoid it. Seeing Huang Rong's silence, Song Qing sighed and said, Rong, you've shouldered too much for Xianyang. With your martial arts skills and status, you could have lived a happy life even in troubled times. Why do you have to get involved in this mess? Huang Rong smiled sadly. Brother Jing works for the country and the people. As his wife, of course I have to support him. Song Qing sighed. Hero Guo works for the country and the people. But has he ever cared about his family? Perhaps in the hearts of the world, he is an indomitable hero, a chivalrous man. But in my heart, he is not a good husband. He made his wife change from a mischievous and carefree girl to a woman who is always worried and scheming. It is really a reckless waste of God's gift. Song Qing did not say anything. In the original novel, Guo Jing let Huang Rong be chased by the Mongolians like a stray dog when she was about to give birth. He did not show his face and only cared about his Xianyang city. If it were not for Yangguo's help, Huang Rong and her daughter would have died. Now that Huang Rong was not pregnant, these things did not happen. Song Qing suddenly had a strange look on his face when he thought of the lively girl in the original novel. If he had taken Huang Rong away, would there still be Guixiang in the world? Shut up, don't say bad things about Brother Jing. Song Qing was still daydreaming when Huang Rong stood up with a frosty face. She said coldly, A gentleman does not criticize others behind their backs. I didn't expect you to be such a person. I was wrong about you. Isn't this because I'm fighting for you? Seeing that Huang Rong's face was getting uglier, Song Qing hurriedly raised his hand and smiled bitterly. Forget it, Rong. You are right. It was a slip of the tongue. My behavior was indeed a bit despicable. Seeing that he admitted his mistake, Huang Rong's face softened. After sitting back down, she said, Prince Song, I can pretend that I didn't hear what you said just now. But if there is a next time, I will not treat you as my friend. Song Qing's eyes suddenly lit up. He excitedly grabbed her hands and said, "So Rong treats me as a friend." Huang Rong blushed and withdrew her hands unnaturally. She said grumpily, "Of course I treat you as a friend. Otherwise, why would I talk to you like this? It would be better if last night's incident did not happen." Huang Rong added in her heart, "Ha ha, that's good, that's good." Song Qing realized that his behavior was rude and hurriedly apologized. "Sorry, I was too excited." Huang Rong rolled her eyes at him. "Now it's my turn to ask you, right? Go ahead, Rong." Song Qing laughed. Huang Rong hesitated and asked, "You took such a big risk to save Brother Jing this time. Do you have improper thoughts about me?" She regretted it as soon as she opened her mouth. It was fine as long as everyone knew the answer to this question. She shouldn't have brought it up to the table. However, she didn't know why, but at that moment, she threw her rationality out of the window and asked the question. Yes. Song Qing's answer was simple and powerful. His burning gaze made Huang Rong flustered. She hurriedly changed the topic. "It's your turn. Rong, how often do you and your wife make out?" Song Qing had an inexplicable smile on his face. Huang Rong secretly spat. This person was really shameless. He had already revealed his true nature and asked this kind of question. But Huang Rong quickly fell into a dilemma. If she told the truth, Brother Jing was busy with the defense of Xiangyang and did not have the opportunity to touch her even once a year. Wouldn't that make her husband lose face and give Song Qing an opportunity to take advantage of? But if she made up a lie and said that the two of them made out every day, Huang Rong subconsciously looked at Song Qing. She didn't know why, but she didn't want to tell him that she was frequently used by other men, even if that man was her husband. Huang Rong took a deep breath and bit her lower lip. "I refuse to answer this question. I choose dare." Chapter 710. Dare. Song Qing Shu raised his eyebrows and stared at her with a faint smile. "Rong, are you sure you want to choose dare?" "Yes." Huang Rong took a deep breath, but her heart was extremely calm. She thought to herself, "I'm not a fool. If your request is too much, I won't play anymore." "Rong, in case you don't know the rules of the game, let me confirm with you again. No matter what request the other party makes, you must do as he says. Do you still want to choose dare?" Song Qing Shu's expression was rather playful, causing Huang Rong to panic in her heart. She couldn't help but slightly regret this choice. However, she was also an extremely stubborn person in her bones. She thought in her heart, "Since I have a way out, why should I admit defeat in front of him? I've thought it through. Tell me, what do you want me to do?" Huang Rong raised her chin, and her smooth and delicate neck was dazzling under the light. Song Qing Shu smiled strangely and sat down on the stool. He waved at her and said, Come here." Seeing his legs spread apart and his face strange, it was difficult for Huang Rong not to have some strange thoughts. Her face turned slightly cold. "What do you want me to do?" "This stool is too hard, and I don't want to knock Rong so I invited Rong to sit on my lap. I guarantee that it will be much softer and more comfortable than a hard stool." Song Qing Shu smiled. Huang Rong was stunned. "This is the dare you want me to do?" Song Qing Shu smiled awkwardly. "Why is it difficult? Why don't I change it?" "No, it's not difficult." Huang Rong's face turned slightly red. She had imagined countless possibilities in her mind. She had always thought that the other party would make some excessive request, but she didn't expect him to make such a request in the end. Although sitting on his lap was a little inappropriate, it was much better than what she had expected. Huang Rong naturally did not dare to ask Song Qing Shu to change his request. Who knew what kind of embarrassing things would happen then? Afraid that Song Qing Shu would suddenly change his request, Huang Rong lifted the hem of her dress and walked over. However, she had only taken 2 steps when she suddenly realized that her behavior was too unreserved. It was as if she desperately wanted to sit in his arms. Seeing Huang Rong stop in her tracks and her expression change, Song Qing Shu smiled faintly and stretched out his hand to grab at the air. Huang Rong felt a soft force coming from him, causing her to lose her balance. When she came to her senses, she found herself sitting on Song Qing Shu's lap. Due to her long years of etiquette education, she subconsciously wanted to stand up, but Song Qingshu's hand was soft but firm around her waist, so she couldn't move at all. Huang Rong sighed. In any case, she had agreed to dare. The only thing that made her happy was that other than holding her waist, Song Qingshu's hand didn't do anything excessive. Rong-er, your body is so soft. Separated by 2 layers of clothes, Song Qingshu could keenly feel the amazing softness and elasticity of her legs. Huang Rong's face heated up. She used the hair beside her ear to hide the unnatural expression on her face. I have already done as you asked. Is it my turn to ask you? Ask. Song Qingshu showed an expression of extreme enjoyment. Of course, with a warm and fragrant body in his arms, it would be strange if he didn't enjoy it. What is your Golden Snake Battalion's final plan? Huang Rong was really curious. Since the last defeat of the Qing army and the armistice with the Manchurian Qing, the Golden Snake Battalion had gradually gained a foothold and became a force that couldn't be ignored in the world. But in the eyes of most people, it was nothing more than that. Limited by their own strength, the Golden Snake Battalion was at most a warlord of a region. In the end, there were only 2 paths. One was to be destroyed by the surrounding powerful countries, and the other was to rely on a certain country and eventually be annexed. The reason why Huang Rong asked this question was to see if she could guide the Golden Snake Battalion to rely on the Southern Song dynasty. If they could successfully subdue such a powerful warlord, the status of the husband and wife in the imperial court would be incomparable to what it was now. Huang Rong could take the opportunity to plan for her husband to officially enter the center of the imperial court. Only by influencing the decisions of the imperial court could she barely see a glimmer of hope in the future. But now, as a person of Jianghu, helping to defend the city, it would be difficult for them to escape the fate of destruction. Of course, Huang Rong didn't just want to make use of Song Qingshu. She planned to push him into the imperial court. Compared to the honest brother Jing, Song Qingshu was more suitable for her plan. When the time came, the 2 of them would support each other, and maybe they could really fight for a chance of survival. He didn't expect Huang Rong to ask such a formal question. Song Qingshu pondered for a while before spitting out 8 words. Expel the Tartars and restore China. Hearing his answer, Huang Rong's delicate body couldn't help but tremble. As intelligent as she was, she naturally knew the hidden weight behind these 8 words. Even though she had always thought that Song Qingshu wasn't the kind of heaven's chosen one who was willing to be under others, she never thought that his ambition would be so great. Like a tiger that could swallow 10,000 li. These words subconsciously appeared in Huang Rong's mind. She couldn't help but secretly smile bitterly. She had always thought that he was only fighting for supremacy in Jianghu. Who would have thought that his ambition was actually to conquer the world? It would be great if Brother Jing was like him. Huang Rong's expression turned gloomy. All these years of helping the Southern Song defend Xiangyang, it could be said that she had been working for others. If that was all, it wouldn't have been so bad. After all, she and her husband didn't have too much ambition. But the darkness in the officialdom had really chilled her heart. It was one thing for the local officials to impede each other in order to compete for merits, which led to the loss of good opportunities. But the big shots in the court often played dirty tricks, either by delaying the payment of the army's pay or deliberately delaying the food and fodder. All kinds of dirty tricks led to the failure of the war, just to have one more reason to attack the political enemies. Countless times Huang Rong had wanted to leave, but her husband had made up his mind to stay in Xiangyang. She could only follow her husband's lead. Countless nights, she would think that it would be great if she could control the imperial court. Although she wouldn't dare to say that she would be able to recover the Central Plains, she would be able to prevent the nomadic regime in the north from taking a step further. But this thought only flashed in her mind for a moment. Huang Rong knew how childish and laughable this thought was. Not to mention that she was a woman. Even if she was an extremely talented man, how could she control the imperial court? The imperial court had always been the result of several factions balancing and compromising each other. Even the emperor couldn't do whatever he wanted, let alone her. But Song Qingshu's ambition made her see another possibility. Since she couldn't do it, why not break all the rules and build a new regime from scratch? Without the cumbersome officialdom, without the various conspirators holding her back, she would probably be able to fully display what she had learned. But Huang Rong quickly dispelled this tempting idea. As the daughter of the Eastern heretic, she had never been a person who stuck to the rules. Rebellion wouldn't scare her. But it was a pity that her husband was Guo Jing, not Song Qingshu. Chapter 711. What? Did I scare you? Song Qing could not help but laugh when he saw Huang Rong remain silent. It is indeed somewhat surprising. Huang Rong withdrew her thoughts and subconsciously tucked her hair behind her ear. She picked up the teacup on the table and handed it to Song Qing. This is also the hope of all the Han people in the world. Here, I will use tea in place of wine to wish Gongzi success. Looking at the fair hand holding the teacup in front of him, Song Qing was slightly dazed. He smiled and said, Ronger, I must drink this cup of tea, but I have to change the way I drink it. How? Huang Rong was stunned. Just like this. Song Qing's hand that was holding the teacup passed by her forearm and returned to his face. Da! Greater than Orikoto. Huang Rong's snow-white face suddenly turned red, and she said with some panic, Don't mess around. This is how to drink the nuptial wine. Song Qing shrugged, looked at the teacup in front of him, and asked, Is this wine? It looks like tea. Huang Rong was stunned and nodded subconsciously. Since it's not wine, what kind of wine is it? Song Qing smiled and drank the tea in his cup in one gulp. His eyes shined as he looked at the pretty face in front of him that was as delicate as porcelain. Ronger offered me a toast, but you don't want to drink it. Could it be that you don't want to expel the Tatars and restore China? Of course not. Huang Rong was angry and anxious. What's the matter with you? Song Qing's expression became serious. Of course it's the same thing. In my opinion, if you don't drink this cup of tea, I'm afraid the heavens are foretelling the failure of this enterprise. I used to think that I had a glib tongue, but compared to you, I'm really ashamed. Huang Rong glared at him. I'll drink it, okay? Although her posture was a little inappropriate. As Song Qing said, she wasn't drinking wine. Therefore, Huang Rong didn't continue to insist. She raised her head and drank the tea in one gulp. As Song Qing watched Huang Rong swallow the tea, her slender, snow-white neck slid slightly, and he suddenly felt his heart move. Are you satisfied now? Huang Rong shook the empty teacup in front of Song Qing and rolled her eyes at him. I can't be more satisfied. Song Qing smiled. Huang Rong's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of craftiness. If there comes a day when you can drive away the Tatars and unify the North, will you lead an army to the South? I don't want to fight a tiger like you after fighting the Mongols and the Jin in Xiangyang. Song Qing shrugged and said firmly, I will. Huang Rong was shocked in her heart. She was just asking casually. After all, she didn't think that he could really unify the North. But for some unknown reason, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in her heart when she heard his answer. Could it be that I really have to become enemies with him when the time comes? Seeing her pale face, Song Qing added, When the time comes, I will lead hundreds of elite soldiers to the city of Xiangyang and declare that as long as I get you, I will immediately retreat. Rong, do you think the Southern Song dynasty will offer you up to avoid a military disaster? Huang Rong was startled. With the shameless conduct of the officials in the court, this was not impossible. But she quickly reacted and snorted, I'm not a commodity. If that happens, I can just leave. Besides, Brother Jing will protect me. Song Qing said playfully, With Hero Guo's heart for the world, I'm afraid the first one to decide to sacrifice you will be him. Huang Rong's face turned pale. Shut up. Brother Jing will never do that to me. That's not necessarily true, Song Qing continued. On one side is the common people, and on the other side is his beloved wife. If I have to choose one, if I'm not wrong, Hero Guo will definitely choose the common people. Seeing that Huang Rong's face was about to change, Song Qing added, Of course, Hero Guo loves you so much. If he makes such a decision, he must be in great pain. He can't face you, and can only commit suicide to apologize to his wife. Thinking of the scene of Xiao Feng's suicide outside Yinmen Pass in the original work, Song Qing was filled with emotion. When a person has no other choice, death is the only ending. When Huang Rong saw that Song Qing was once again trying to drive a wedge between their husband and wife, she was furious. However, his last sentence extinguished all her anger. With her intelligence, it was not difficult for her to simulate her husband's choice in that kind of situation. Perhaps it really would be, as he said. Seeing Huang Rong's desolate face, Song Qing smiled. Rong, do you really think I'll have the chance to bring hundreds of troops to Xiangyang to demand you back? Huang Rong looked at him deeply. After a long time, she said, although I don't think it's possible, if that day really comes. I hope you won't bring troops to Xiangyang. I'll take the initiative to find you first. Are you afraid that if I really bring troops to Xiangyang, Hirogua will be forced into a dead end? Song Qing saw through her with one look. Huang Rong hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. Song Qing immediately smiled. His smile was somewhat proud. I wonder what Ronger will find me for. The corners of Huang Rong's lips curled up, sweeping away her previous shyness. Her face was brimming with a different kind of expression. Do whatever you want. This time, it was Song Qing's turn to be stunned. He did not expect such an answer from her. Just as he was about to say something, Huang Rong giggled. Look at you. I really think there will be a day when you unify the North. Song Qing stopped smiling. In this world, nothing is impossible. The confidence on his face stunned Huang Rong. Suddenly a thought flashed through her mind. Maybe there will really be such a day. Rong, remember what you said today. Hearing Huang Rong's answer, Song Qing was in a good mood. Huang Rong blushed and snorted. What did I say just now? Why don't I remember? Song Qing looked at her thoughtfully and said lightly, you will remember when the time comes. The smile on Huang Rong's face slowly disappeared. Both of them were smart people. Both of them knew that if that really happened, she would be the only choice. Seeing the tense atmosphere in the room, Song Qing suddenly changed his words. Now it's my turn to ask a question. Huang Rong also calmed herself down. After all, worrying about that kind of situation would be groundless. She could not help but smile gently. Ask. Following that, the two of them did not ask too many questions. Most of them were related to the trivial matters of life. After a few rounds of questions and answers, both of them had a deeper understanding of each other, and their relationship seemed to have become closer. It's getting late. Why don't we call a night? With the current posture of the two of them, not to mention Song Qing, even Huang Rong felt a little uneasy. She knew that the atmosphere was harmonious, and it was a good time to end it. This time around, you're the one who asked the question first. So, I still have one last question. Song Qing's smile suddenly became strange. What a stingy man. Huang Rong snorted, then asked. Chapter 712. Huang Rong had been waiting for the last question to end tonight's conversation. Who knew that Song Qing would say something like that? It was just a few words, and Song Qing's voice was very soft, but to Huang Rong, it was earth-shattering. He knows, he knows. Huang Rong felt her vision go black, and her soft body stiffened. She almost fell to the ground. Song Qing held Huang Rong's shoulder to prevent her from falling. He said with a faint smile, why? Is this question difficult to answer? Huang Rong wanted to strangle him to death when she saw his evil smile. Was this question not difficult to answer? NP.V. Less than or equal to. How would he know? I planned everything perfectly. There's no way he would know. Huang Rong's mind was in a mess. She did not respond to Song Qing, but thought quickly in her mind. But after a few thoughts, she gave up on this question. After all, Song Qing already knew. It was useless to think about where the flaw was. Huang Rong quickly began to think about how to salvage the situation. I must not let Brother Jing know. This was the first thought that came to Huang Rong's mind. But she also knew that it was easier said than done. Song Qing would definitely use this as a threat to achieve his long-term goal. Was she really going to do something wrong to Brother Jing just to hide it from him? After all, Huang Rong wasn't a weak person. She quickly made a decision. If Song Qing really wanted to threaten her, She could just confess the truth to Brother Jing. She couldn't continue to make mistakes. Of course, Huang Rong knew that she could only tell the truth after they left Kaifeng City. Otherwise, no one knew what would happen. First, Brother Jing might kill Song Qing in a rage. But now that he was seriously injured, he was no match for Song Qing. Second, Song Qing would think of killing them when he saw that the truth had been exposed. Then, he would blame the whole thing on the Jin people. That would be really secretive. Although Huang Rong's mind was in a mess, she forced herself to think through the whole thing in order. She made a final decision. She would pretend to be a snake to Song Qing first, and when she and Brother Jing safely returned to Xiangyang, she would confess to him. Ronga. Seeing that Huang Rong was silent and her body was trembling violently, Song Qing couldn't help but reach out and shake her. "Are you okay?" Huang Rong's face turned pale. She forced a smile and said, "I'm fine." Looking at Song Qing's innocent face, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. "Can you tell me the answer now?" Song Qing looked into her eyes. In fact, when Song Qing entered her body last night, Huang Rong already had an answer in her heart. But how could she say it out loud? What's more, it involved her husband's dignity. She had already let her husband down, so how could she trample on his dignity in front of other men? Huang Rong took a deep breath and answered ambiguously. "Who do you think is older?" "How would I know?" Song Qing shrugged. "Rong, you've experienced it yourself. Only you know. How shameless." Huang Rong secretly spat. She and Guijing had been married for so many years, but she had never said such explicit words in private. This man was really thick-skinned. Of course it's Brother Jing who's older. Huang Rong braced herself and said something against her will. "Huh?" Song Qing frowned and revealed an expression of disbelief. "How is that possible?" "What's impossible?" Huang Rong snorted coldly. "But Agio and Zhuo were all subdued by my greatness," Song Qing said in distress. Seeing that Song Qing's words were becoming more and more outrageous, Huang Rong cursed in her heart. But now that things had come to this, she could only continue to insist. "They don't know Brother Jing's situation." "That's true." Song Qing nodded sadly. "I thought my ambition was big enough, but I didn't expect Hero Guo's to be even bigger. Does he want to unify the world?" Huang Rong was stunned. You're asking who has the bigger ambition? What else do you think?" Song Qing looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. Huang Rong's previously pale face suddenly turned red. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Song Qing's voice rang out at the right time. "Rong, or what were you comparing?" Huang Rong said hatefully, "I don't know." "Really?" Song Qing smiled even more happily. "But for what you said just now, why did it sound like you were comparing that something?" Huang Rong was embarrassed and anxious. She suddenly turned around and stamped her feet at the same time. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Song Qing ignored her and said, "Rong, it's not surprising that you know Brother Jing's size, but how do you know mine?" Huang Rong took a deep breath and steadied her chaotic breathing. "Young Master Song, please conduct yourself with dignity." "Behave myself." Song Qing's voice became a bit ethereal. "But not long ago, I accidentally looked down from Ronger's collar. There seemed to be a lot of love bites on Ronger's body. If I remember correctly, Hero Guo was still in prison at that time." Huang Rong was shocked and subconsciously covered her collar. Only then did she realize that this was the flaw. She also realized that Song Qing was just deliberately teasing her. "Prince Song, I don't understand what you want to say." Huang Rong pretended to know nothing and said with a smile, "I want to know, who is that lucky man?" Song Qing stared at her with burning eyes. Huang Rong looked away unnaturally. "You think too much. There is no man." Song Qing couldn't help laughing. "Rong, in fact, we don't need to test each other like this. There are a lot of things that need to be said directly." Huang Rong was shocked and looked at him nervously. She didn't know what he was going to say. Song Qing walked to the window with his hands behind his back and looked at the quiet night sky outside. He seemed to be thinking about how to phrase it. After a long time, he said, "Last night, I really didn't know it was you." Huang Rong's heart jumped. What should come finally came. She had imagined countless possibilities before, But when it came, she found that it was not as difficult to deal with as she had imagined. After a long silence, she replied, I know. I'm really sorry. I thought it was Mrs. Tang, so I was so rude last night. Song Qing turned around and looked at her apologetically. Do I have to apologize for this kind of thing? Huang Rong almost died of anger. She bit her lip and said coldly, I don't want to hear anything about last night. It was just a misunderstanding. Let bygones be bygones. Song Qing immediately understood what she meant. She meant that she didn't blame him for what happened last night, and she didn't want to pursue it. Her only request was that both of them forget about it. Chapter 713. This sentence resonated in Huang Rong's heart. What happened last night was indeed unforgettable. Putting aside the moral torment, she had to admit that the experience was unprecedentedly wonderful and happy. Unfortunately, when she thought of losing her chastity to a man other than her husband, all the wonderful feelings instantly turned into a lash on her conscience. I have to forget even if I can't. Huang Rong's voice was no longer trembling and hesitant. It was as if she had instantly returned to the decisive beggar sect leader. Unfortunately, I don't intend to forget. Song Qingshu shook his head. Huang Rong gritted her teeth, her beautiful eyes full of anger. You took advantage of me last night, and I don't intend to pursue it anymore. What more do you want? That's a great advantage indeed. Song Qingshu nodded, obviously agreeing with her statement. But my appetite is also very big. Huang Rong's hands and feet instantly turned cold. What do you mean? Rong-er, I think you know how I feel about you. Song Qingshu's eyes slid across the delicate face in front of him. He could not help but sigh at the magic of the Creator. Because of your identity, I have always maintained a certain degree of restraint. Rong-er, you should be able to feel it. Huang Rong's face heated up, and she gave a soft as she recalled what happened between the two of them. It was indeed as he had said. Although Song Qingshu often did some ambiguous things, it was all for a reason. Generally speaking, he was still a man of etiquette. If not for that, she wouldn't have fallen asleep on his bed last night without any precaution. Thinking of this, Huang Rong's teeth itched with hatred. She had been deceived by his gentlemanly side. But since what happened last night, a lot of restraint is unnecessary. Song Qingshu continued. Huang Rong was shocked. What do you want? To be my woman, whether it was as Kangxi or as the Golden Snake King. He had been in a high position for a long time. Once he became serious, his voice carried an inexplicable majesty and unquestionable authority. Impossible. Huang Rong flatly refused. Why? Song Qingshu asked calmly. Because I already have a husband and a daughter, Huang Rong hastily explained. Because I already have a husband and a daughter, and because of this, I will not be tolerated by the world, Huang Rong hastily explained. However, after giving a few reasons, she couldn't help but be stunned. Why did she have to explain so clearly? A refusal was a refusal, and there was no need for a reason. It's easy to solve your husband's problem. As long as he's dead, it's normal for you to remarry. Song Qingshu's voice was cold. Huang Rong's heart turned cold, and she hurriedly said, If something happens to Brother Jing, I'll bite my tongue to kill myself rather than satisfy your wish. Song Qingshu's expression was gloomy. After a long while, he sighed and said, Forget it. Hirogua is a great hero after all. He's a totem in the hearts of countless people. I've always admired his integrity. How could he do something that would anger both men and gods? Rong-er, don't be afraid. I won't use despicable means to deal with Hirogua. Hearing this, Huang Rong let out a sigh of relief and subconsciously believed him. Although there was no guarantee, she felt that Song Qingshu's courage was not that kind of despicable person. After thinking about it, the only way to get you is to do as I said before and send troops to Xiangyang. In the face of absolute power, all the criticism in the world is nothing. Moreover, I'll bear all the notoriety, and it won't damage the reputation of you and your wife. Song Qingshu frowned as if he was thinking hard and talking to himself. Okay, I'll wait for that day. Huang Rong knew that the possibility of that day happening was almost zero, so she didn't mind delaying the deadline indefinitely. Song Qing-shu shook his head. I know what you're thinking. You must think that I'm just boasting, but I believe that this day will eventually come. It's just that it might take 10 or 20 years for that day to come. By then, we'll both be old. Since ancient times, beauties have been like famous generals, and they're not allowed to see their hair turn white. I can't wait that long. Huang Rong subconsciously took a step back and asked, what do you want? Song Qing-shu said in a low voice, I'm afraid it'll be 10 years before you can be my woman openly. But if you just want to be my lover in secret, you can start from now. Huang Rong was so angry that she laughed. Why? Who do you think you are? You know what I'm talking about. Song Qing-shu looked very calm, as if he was talking about something very ordinary. Huang Rong also fell silent, because she knew that what Song Qing-shu said was true, whether it was his martial arts or the 9 manual's soul-shifting technique. In addition to the fact that Brother Jing's life was in his hands, if Song Qing-shu really wanted to take her body, it could be said that she had no power to resist. If it was in the past, even if she was in an absolute disadvantage, she could use her intelligence to find a solution. But after what happened last night, all of this became meaningless. Her innocence was already gone. What difference would it make if she did it more or less? Rong, I believe that you're a smart woman. You should know the difference between taking the initiative to promise me and forcing me to do it. Song Qing-shu looked at her deeply. You're a demon. Huang Rong trembled. Why didn't I discover your true colors earlier? Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. That's because I couldn't bear to use these methods to deal with you. I hope you won't force me to show my demon side in front of you. Huang Rong was silent again. After a long time, she said, I can promise you, but you must agree to a few conditions. Song Qing-shu snapped his fingers. Rong is really smart. If you force me to force you, you won't have a chance to talk terms with me. What are your conditions? As long as it's not too much, I can consider it. First, you must guarantee Brother Jing's safety. You can't do anything to him. No problem. Song Qing-shu agreed, very straightforwardly. Second, this matter is only between you and me. You absolutely can't reveal it to a third person, not even to the people closest to you. Huang Rong's expression became more and more calm, as if she was talking about something that had nothing to do with her. You're afraid that I'll deliberately let Hero Guan know and ruin your relationship. Song Qing-shu smiled. Don't worry, I won't do that. If he really found out, it would be boring. You can't tell others, such as Miss Zhou, Miss Ajio, and the others. Huang Rong bit her lip and added, No problem. Is there anything else? Song Qing-shu said with a smile. Third, this relationship is limited to within Kaifeng City. In the future, you're not allowed to disturb my life. Huang Rong looked at him quietly. Dividing line. Chapter 714. No. Song Qing-shu refused directly. I want you to be my lover for a lifetime, not just for a few days. That's impossible for a lifetime. Huang Rong's attitude was also very firm. If that's the case, I'll be honest with Brother Jing. I believe he won't blame me. Even if you kill us, we'll still be a pair of mandarin ducks that share the same fate. Looking at her firm eyes, Song Qing-shu sighed. Okay, then let's limit it to 10 years. After 10 years, I should be able to find you openly. We don't need to be sneaky anymore. 1 year. Huang Rong raised her head and looked at him stubbornly. Song Qing-shu frowned. 3 years. Seeing that Huang Rong still wanted to say something, Song Qing-shu said coldly, This is my bottom line. You should know that I can totally not agree to these conditions of yours. Huang Rong's face alternated between green and white. It was obvious that she was having a fierce psychological struggle. Song Qing-shu timely said, Rong, in fact, you're thinking too much. I have so many things to do right now. I travel between countries all day long. At most, I can find you once or twice a year when I have free time. Do you think this frequency is unacceptable? Huang Rong knew that he was not lying. If it was an ordinary man who had an outstanding beauty like her as his lover, perhaps he would stay by her side all day long. However, Song Qing-shu was different from ordinary people. He had great ambitions and was not the kind of man who was willing to indulge in the land of gentleness. Moreover, he had so many fairy-like lovers by his side, so he had even less time to look for her. Okay, 3 years it is, but you have to promise me that when you find me, you can't affect my normal life. Also, whether I'm willing to accompany you or not depends on my mood. Huang Rong snorted, and her face flashed with the slyness of a young girl. It's not difficult to not affect your normal life, but whether you accompany me or not depends on your mood. When the time comes, you definitely won't be willing. Song Qingshu was not Ouyang Ke. He would not forget himself in front of a beauty. If I don't even have this little power, then wouldn't I be purely a tool for you to vent your desires? Huang Rong said angrily. Song Qingshu was still a little hesitant. Huang Rong had too many tricks up her sleeves. If he was accidentally led into a trap by her, it would be a big loss. Humph, didn't you boast that whatever martial art is #1 in the world? If you're really that good, are you afraid that I won't be willing to accompany you? Huang Rong turned her face to the side after she finished speaking. From Song Qingshu's point of view, he could see that her crystal ears seemed to have a layer of pink. Song Qingshu finally smiled. Okay, I promise you. Seeing that Song Qingshu was staring at her, the silence in the room made Huang Rong a little flustered. She hurriedly added, there's a condition, Rong tell me. Song Qingshu didn't think much of it. Huang Rong willingly agreed to be his lover was something he didn't even dare to think about in the past. Speaking of which, Madame Tang was their matchmaker. If it weren't for her, last night's incident wouldn't have happened. If it weren't for the fact that the rice was cooked last night, how would Huang Rong agree so easily? Song Qingshu was in a good mood at the moment. It wasn't difficult for him to agree to a few small requests from her. Huang Rong had actually only thought of the 3 conditions. Her mind was a mess, but she was afraid that if she didn't say it, she wouldn't have another chance later. She could only randomly say, in the future, if anything happens to Xiangyang, you can't refuse if I ask for your help. Sure. Song Qingshu carefully thought about it. Xiangyang's safety was actually in line with his interests. The Southern Song dynasty was now relying on the natural barrier of the Yangtze River, and Xiangyang was the gateway to the middle reaches of the Yangtze River. If Xiangyang was lost, the nomads from the north would come down with the river, and the small Southern Song dynasty would be destroyed in an instant. What Song Qingshu needed the most now was time. Only when the big countries kept each other in check could he benefit from both sides and expand. Seeing that Song Qingshu had agreed, Huang Rong was delighted. After all, Song Qingshu was not only skilled in martial arts, but also had tens of thousands of elite soldiers under his command. With his strong support, defending Xiangyang would be much easier. But I won't help you for free every time. While I'm helping you, you have to accompany me, Song Qingshu suddenly said. Huang Rong's heart skipped a beat. She angrily said, Brother Jing and I are both in Xiangyang City. When the time comes, how can I accompany you? Song Qingshu shrugged. I don't care. It's your business. Seeing that Huang Rong was confused, Song Qingshu reminded her, Rong you are so smart. When the time comes, you can make up any reason to come to me. For example, you can discuss intelligence and make tactical plans with me. Why would Hero suspect you? Huang Rong blushed. She looked at him in surprise. You are so young. I don't know where you learned so many dirty tricks. Song Qingshu smiled. This is all thanks to the passionate performances of the Japanese artists and the influence of the foreign artists day and night. Of course, there are also some gentlemen literary works in our country. Huang Rong was confused. What artists? What Japanese? She did not understand. She only had some impression of Japan. Japan? Is it neon? That's right. Song Qingshu smiled. Seeing his strange smile, Huang Rong knew it was not something good. She quickly stopped asking questions. Do you have any other conditions? Rong, or you have to seize the opportunity. I won't wait for you. Song Qingshu asked. Also, Huang Rong hurriedly agreed, but she couldn't think of anything that needed his help at the moment. Song Qingshu was also urging her on. In a moment of desperation, she thought of something. Fu accidentally chopped off one of Yang's arms. Brother Jing was very angry and wanted to chop off one of Funer's arms as compensation. I had no choice but to let Fuder go to Peach Blossom Island. But she is very playful and may slip into Jianghu to play. Nowadays, Jianghu is very dangerous. Do you have any way to protect her? Song Qingshu frowned. If she is in Shandong, it won't be a problem. But if she is in other places, I'm afraid I can't help her. Huang Rong was disappointed. That's true. This time, Yang Guo and Wan Yinliang are working together to deal with you. Does Hero Guo still want to see Guofu's hand? Song Qingshu asked. Huang Rong sighed. Brother Jing is a righteous man. He feels that we caused Yang Kang's death. He feels guilty towards the Yang family. Now that Fu Er cut off Guo's hand, I'm afraid Brother Jing won't forgive Fu Er so easily. I don't dare to bring her back to Xiangyang. I have a way to make Hero Guo not cut off Fu Er's hand. Song Qingshu's words immediately piqued Huang Rong's curiosity. What way? Huang Rong looked at him in surprise. Song Qingshu's lips curled into a faint smile. When the time comes, you can ask Hero Guo to betroth your daughter to me, and Fu Er will become my fiancé. Will Hero Guo still cut off her hand? Chapter 715. Song Qingshu spread out his hands and cried. I was just trying to get Hero Guo to give up on chopping off his daughter's hand. What else could he have been thinking? You know what you were thinking? Huang Rong snorted coldly. All right. I was just messing with you. Song Qingshu laughed. You're thinking too much. I just want to show Hero Guo that he's interested in Guofu. Is he really going to chop off Guofu's hand for the sake of me, his savior? What father doesn't love his daughter? Do you really think Hero Guo would be willing to chop off Fu Er's hand? I gave him a way out. Plus, Yang Guo attacked you this time. All you have to do is say a few words, and everything will be over. Besides, I was just putting on a show. Do you really think I'm interested in that stubborn girl? I have so many women around me. I'm afraid that she'll chop me in the middle of the night if I offend her. Fu Er isn't as stubborn as you make her out to be, Huang Rong blushed. Besides, you're such a shameless bastard. If you really do get choked, it's God's justice. Song Qingshu moved closer to her and said with a drooling face, If I'm really killed, won't you become a widow? Puffed. Huang Rong spat. You're not my husband. I may not be your husband, but I am your man. Song Qingshu put his hands on her shoulders, and his lips touched the skin on the back of her neck. What will you want? Huang Rong's voice trembled. You know what I want. Song Qingshu pressed his body tightly against her back. Feeling the heat on her back, Huang Rong was silent for a while. After a long time, she shook her head and said, Not today. Brother Jing is next door. So what? Song Qingshu untied her hair bun, buried his head in her hair, and took a deep breath. Huang Rong was shocked by his answer. She didn't expect him to be so bold. Just as her mind went blank, she suddenly felt her chest tighten. It turned out that his big hand had taken advantage of the situation to reach into her clothes. I beg you not here. Huang Rong pressed his hand and begged. Agreeing to be his lover was enough to challenge her moral bottom line. Now that her husband was next door, she did not dare to let him do whatever he wanted. The request is invalid. Song Qingshu's voice was unquestionable. If you act so presumptuously in Wuji, the thing between us will be exposed sooner or later. No, I regret it. I refuse to be your lover. Huang Rong said angrily with a red face. Song Qingshu tightly held her well-proportioned and plump body in his arms from behind. His voice was a little excited. Ronger, let me fool around this time. I won't fool around like this again in the future. Don't you think your married life is too dull? This kind of experience may not come even once in a lifetime. Don't you want to try it? Huang Rong felt half of her body soften when she was steamed by his masculine heat. When she heard his devilish seductive words, her heart suddenly beat wildly. When she was young, she was famous for being mischievous and liked to try all kinds of new things. It was only after she got married that she restrained her temper. However, her nature was still there. Once there was a catalyst, she was like a volcano, igniting at the slightest touch. Although reason told her that it was not right, she did not know why she had not made up her mind to refuse. When he began to untie her belt, She finally came to her senses and grabbed his evil hand. She hesitated for a moment and finally sighed. Don't untie your belt. If something happens later, you won't have time to wear it. Hearing Huang Rong's words, Song Qingshu raised the corner of his mouth proudly. This playful young woman was willing to take the initiative to cooperate with him, which meant that she had already fallen for him. Huang Rong was also very surprised to say such words, but there was a trembling sense of taboo besides shame. Since things had come to this, she seemed to have given up on herself. She turned sideways and wrapped her arms around Song Qingshu's neck. She took the initiative to offer her lips and kissed him passionately. Song Qingshu reached out to hold her buttocks and lifted them up. Huang Rong spread her legs and wrapped them around his waist. She looked at him with a blushing face, pursed her lips, and said softly, "Be quiet. Don't disturb Brother Jing." Huang Rong's peach blossom-like face exuded an amazing seductive look. Her eyes seemed to be seeping water. How could Song Qingshu bear it? He held Huang Rong's buttocks and pressed her directly against the wall. Two soft sighs of satisfaction sounded in the room at the same time. The two of them hit the wall with a muffled sound. Huang Rong was so frightened that her beautiful face turned pale. She hurriedly pricked up her ears to listen to the movements next door. Seeing that there was no reaction, she suddenly fiercely bit Song Qingshu's shoulder. "You really are a bastard. Didn't I tell you to be quiet?" I was too excited. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Song Qingshu's face. A woman who says one thing but means another. Her body is clearly so passionate, but her mouth is always pretending to be a lady. Huang Rong was so embarrassed that she didn't dare to look at his eyes. She buried her head in his shoulder and bit him again. Song Qingshu knew that if he continued to tease her, he would really anger the lovely baby in his arms. After all, this was the first time she had truly broken through a moral taboo. Song Qingshu didn't say anything else. He squeezed all the strength in his body into her warm body. Huang Rong's skin was soon covered with a dense layer of sweat, making her flushed skin look even more vibrant. Not long after, Huang Rong hurriedly reached out to cover her mouth, deliberately suppressing the sweet sound of happiness that was coming from her throat. She had never experienced this before. It was just the beginning, but her body had already reached the peak of happiness. Song Qingshu seemed to sense her body's reaction, and his movements also became gentler. Although he's a bit of a bastard, he really is a gentle and considerate man. Huang Rong pressed her face against his chest. For a moment, she was a little dazed. After a moment of silence, Song Qingshu asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Rong, have you rested enough?" "Yes." Huang Rong didn't dare to look into his eyes. She just snorted. Song Qingshu carried her to the table. He swept away the debris on the table with one hand and let Huang Rong lie on the table. The clear sound of the cup and kettle falling to the ground made her heart jump. Suddenly, Guijing's puzzled voice came from inside. "Rong, is that you outside?" "Jing Gij, I accidentally knocked over the teapot." Huang Rong felt that her brain had never worked so fast before. Without a second's hesitation, she found the solution. At this time, her whole body was stiff, afraid that Guijing would come out to check. What's more, the man behind her suddenly entered her body at this time. Chapter 716. Fortunately, the curtain was not opened. Listening to the movements inside, it seemed that Guijing turned over and went back to sleep. Huang Rong's whole body suddenly went limp. Huang Rong's heart suddenly trembled from the sudden impact. Only then did she realize that the bastard behind her was still sprinting. With a lingering fear, she did not want to take this risk anymore and struggled to get up. Unfortunately, the other party's big hand was tightly pressing down on her shoulder. She tried a few times, but could not get up. Just as she was about to take a deep breath and force herself to get up, Song Qingshu just happened to hit the depths of her soul. The strength that she had painstakingly accumulated suddenly disappeared without a trace. "Please don't do this." Huang Rong turned her head, a pair of beautiful watery eyes full of pleading. Song Qingshu bent down and whispered in her ear, "Rong, Why do you have to be so insincere? You don't know how smooth your body is after the stimulation from Hirogwa just now. Huang Rong turned her head to the side in shame and no longer paid attention to him. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly and changed his usual manner. Instead, he became leisurely, as if he was leisurely paddling a boat on a calm lake on a sunny day. Not long after, Huang Rong finally could not bear it anymore and said angrily, "Can you hurry up?" Song Qing-shu raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. "Ronger, do you think I'm too slow?" Huang Rong was stunned at first, but she quickly reacted and blushed. "I didn't mean that. I wanted you to hurry up and finish." Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders. "Can't help it. Gifted people can be so capricious." Huang Rong almost died of anger. Just as she was about to say something, Song Qing-shu moved closer to her ear and said, "Of course, if Ronger cooperates with me, I might be able to come out sooner. How do you want me to cooperate?" Huang Rong bit her lip to control her voice and rolled her eyes at him. "This is something that women are born with. You don't need to be taught." Song Qing-shu gently stroked her milky white waist and said softly, "I don't know what sins I committed in my previous life to meet you in this life." Huang Rong sighed faintly. Although she was a little embarrassed, she had no choice but to match the other's rhythm and began to gently twist her waist in order to end it quickly. After an unknown period of time, Huang Rong's eyes blurred, and her whole body slumped on the table, unable to lift a trace of strength. She secretly cursed in her heart. "This bastard is really a beast. He even tricked me into taking the initiative. It's been so long, but there's no sign of anything happening." While her mind was in a daze, she suddenly felt her whole body being carried in the air. After being tormented for so long, her whole body felt like it was falling apart. She felt very lazy and didn't even want to open her eyes. She was also too lazy to care about how the other party tormented her. She casually hooked her arms around Song Qing-shu's neck and pressed her face against his chest. Suddenly, Huang Rong felt something strange in her body. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. How come this person had suddenly grown so much bigger? Puzzled, he raised his head, and when he saw his surroundings, he was nearly scared out of his wits. It turned out that when she wasn't paying attention, Song Qing-shu had carried her straight into the inner room, and now Brother Jing was sleeping on the bed a few feet away. This bastard. No wonder he became even more excited. A thought flashed through Huang Rong's mind, and she began to struggle with all her might. But first, her strength was not as strong as Song Qing-shu, and second, she didn't dare to move too much for fear of waking him up. If he saw her current embarrassing state, she didn't know how to face it. Song Qing-shu straightened his waist, and Huang Rong felt her whole body go limp. Knowing that her vital parts were under control, she didn't have the strength to struggle. But the current scene shocked her too much, and 2 lines of tears flowed down uncontrollably. "Don't worry, I will finish this quickly. I won't wake him up." Song Qing-shu's voice came through secret voice sending. But Huang Rong didn't believe him, and tears streamed down her face. Song Qing-shu felt a strong sense of conquest welling up in his chest as he looked at the tear-stained beauty in his arms. He was so excited that he wanted to roar out loud. It felt so good to have a sprint, and soon his scalp began to go numb. Huang Rong seemed to feel the changes in his body and hurriedly began to contract her body to stimulate him. In her heart, she kept saying, "Hurry up, hurry up. Ronger, is that you?" At this time, a voice sounded, and Huang Rong was scared out of her wits. She slowly turned her head and found that Guijing had already sat up straight and was looking at the two. "It's over." Huang Rong's mind went blank. Song Qing-shu was also shocked. Just now, he had carried Huang Rong here on impulse, and he didn't want Guijing to find out about the two. Seeing Guijing staring at the two, his enthusiasm was like a bucket of cold water being poured over his head. Now that things had come to this, it was useless to explain. Song Qing-shu was also a hoodlum. Not only did he not let go of Huang Rong, but he also sped up. He was already almost there, and after being stimulated by Guijing, he could not hold on for another 2 or 3 more moves. His whole body quivered, and he poured all the enthusiasm in his body into Huang Rong's body. Huang Rong was drenched by the heat wave, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Crazy, crazy, he's really crazy. This was the only thought left in her mind. Huh? Hearing Song Qingshu's heavy breathing, a trace of surprise flashed across Guo Jing's face. Is Song Xiaoxia here too? Huang Rong and Song Qingshu looked at each other. What did he mean by this? Song Qingshu even thought, could it be that Guo Jing deliberately expressed his stance and wanted to pretend that he didn't see anything to cover up this matter? However, he quickly shook his head. The two of them were already so obvious. How could they pretend that they didn't know what was going on? Moreover, Guo Jing was a straightforward person and did not seem like a quick-witted person. Ronger, Song Xiaoxia is here. Why don't you light the lamp? Guo Jing's words rang out again, and it made the two of them even more confused. The oil lamp in the room was very bright at this moment. Huang Rong's heart ached. Big Brother Jing must have said this on purpose to save my face. It was still Song Qingshu who was calm. His sharp eyes noticed that there seemed to be a faint black aura between Guo Jing's eyebrows, and he couldn't help but ask in surprise, Hero Guo, could it be that you've been poisoned? Poisoned? Guo Jing was startled, and when he circulated his true qi, he found that there was no true qi in his abdomen. He couldn't help but be shocked. No wonder I didn't hear Song Xiaoxia. When did you come in? I seem to have really been poisoned. At this time, Huang Rong finally reacted and cried out in alarm. Jing Ji Ji, what's wrong? She struggled to go over to check on her husband's situation, but who knew that Song Qingshu would hold her tightly and had no intention of letting go. Chapter 717. Song Qingshu was startled. His first reaction was that Guo Jing's excuse was pretty good. It could resolve the awkwardness of the situation to the greatest extent. If he couldn't see, it naturally meant that he didn't see what happened between him and Huang Rong. However, Song Qingshu quickly dispelled this idea. In his panic, he didn't notice it. Now that he looked carefully, Guo Jing's eyes were blurred and seemed to have no focus. It was a sign of blindness. What's going on? Song Qingshu was stunned. Let me go. Huang Rong struggled even harder. Fortunately, Guo Jing's mind was in a mess, so he didn't notice anything unusual. This time, Song Qingshu didn't stop her. However, he also wanted to see what was going on with Guo Jing. So, he directly walked towards Guo Jing with Huang Rong in his arms. Huang Rong didn't expect him to be so bold. Even now, the two of them were still intimately together. She subconsciously struggled, but unfortunately, Song Qingshu held her tightly and had no intention of letting go. She was embarrassed and anxious. She fiercely punched his chest. Seeing that she was about to reach Guo Jing, she hurriedly tidied up her skirt and let it down to cover the embarrassing scene. Song Qingshu ignored her and directly said to Guo Jing, Hero Guo, if you don't mind, let me feel your pulse. After coming to this world for so long, he had learned a lot of martial arts. Coupled with the fact that he was injured from time to time, it could be said that a long illness made a good doctor. At least, feeling someone's pulse was not difficult for him. Thank you, Song Xiaoxia. Guo Jing was, after all, a hero of his generation. After the initial panic, he quickly calmed down and had the demeanor of a master. Huang Rong, who was beside him, almost fainted from anger. Her heart was filled with hatred. Brother Jing, the man you are grateful to is now bullying Rong, in front of you. As if to confirm her thoughts, Huang Rong felt a gust of hot air coming out her body. The thing that Song Qingshu used to bully her seemed to be showing signs of rearing its head again. Ah! Huang Rong's delicate body trembled and subconsciously cried out. Ronger, what's wrong? Guo Jing turned his head in confusion. Huang Rong's heart almost jumped out of her throat when he stared at her from such a close distance. She turned her head and saw Song Qingshu looking at her with a smile that was not a smile. He didn't look the least bit afraid. She was so ashamed that she wanted to die. After hesitating for a moment, she sighed and said, It's nothing, Jing Ji Ji. Seeing that she didn't confess, Song Qingshu proudly raised his eyebrows. Huang Rong felt the sudden expansion of power in her body. Her delicate body went limp, and she subconsciously moaned. Fortunately, she covered her mouth in time and didn't cry out. Huang Rong knew that she couldn't let him continue doing evil. She suppressed her trembling and asked in a cold voice, "Young Master Song, what happened to Brother Jing?" Although her words were polite, she had already cursed the other party half to death in her heart. If looks could kill, who knew how many times Song Qingshu would have been shot by arrows? Song Qingshu knew that she was on the verge of exploding, so he didn't continue to provoke her. He said in a low voice, "Hero Guo seems to have a strange poison in his body." Poison? Huang Rong's voice became even colder. "Song Xiaoxia, what kind of medicine did you give Brother Jing?" Song Qingshu's expression changed. He snorted and said, "What? Do you think I poisoned Hero Guo?" As if to punish her for saying the wrong thing. Song Qingshu straightened his body as soon as he finished speaking. Huang Rong's almond-shaped eyes suddenly widened. She hurriedly covered her mouth and swallowed the words she was about to say. Guo Jing's voice also sounded. "Rong Song Xiaoxia's righteousness reaches to the clouds and saved our lives." "How can you say that?" Quickly apologized to Song Xiaoxia. His tone was quite harsh. Huang Rong's eyes turned red. She felt extremely wronged. "Brother Jing, you don't know anything. This bastard is not a good person." It was a pity that she couldn't explain the reason to Guo Jing. But in this situation, she couldn't apologize to Song Qingshu. Seeing that Huang Rong had been silent, Guo Jing couldn't help but frown. "Rong, you used to be quite sensible. What's wrong with you today?" Being scolded by her husband, Huang Rong felt even more wronged. Just when she was about to expose Song Qingshu's true colors, she suddenly heard his naughty voice. "Rong, only when Hero Guo is unscathed will I have a greater sense of accomplishment in conquering you. Do you think I would poison you?" Huang Rong subconsciously realized that this was Song Qingshu talking to her through secret voice sending. If he had explained it with other reasons, she wouldn't have easily believed him. After all, this bastard had always wanted to get her. If anything happened to Brother Jing, he would be the biggest beneficiary, and the chances of him getting her would be higher. But after hearing Song Qingshu's reason, Huang Rong subconsciously believed him, because this reason was indeed in line with his shameless and obscene style. While Huang Rong was thinking, Song Qingshu said, "Hero Guo, you don't have to blame Mrs. Guo. Mrs. Guo was just too worried and lost her composure just now." Hearing this, Huang Rong secretly cursed in her heart. She indeed lost her composure now, but it was all because of this bastard. Guo Jing smiled slightly. "Song Xiaoxia is really broad-minded. I apologize on behalf of Rome." Huang Rong hurriedly pulled Guo Jing's arm. "Brother Jing, don't apologize to him." Guo Jing didn't expect his wife to have such a big reaction. He was subconsciously stunned. "Why?" Huang Rong was speechless for a moment. She bit her lip. Anyway, you can apologize to anyone but him." Huang Rong secretly felt sad in her heart. "Brother Jing, your wife was bullied by him, but you foolishly apologized to him. That bastard must be so proud of himself." Song Qingshu timely said with a smile, "Hero Guo, Mrs. Guo means that we are like a family. There is no need to apologize to him." "A family?" A trace of confusion flashed across Guo Jing's face. "It's like this," Song Qingshu explained with a smile. "Last time, when we fought against the Manchurian cavalry, thanks to Mrs. Guo's help, we fought together against the enemy. We are already very familiar with each other. Don't you think so, Mrs. Guo?" Huang Rong almost fainted from his sudden movement. She was ashamed and angry, but at this time, she could only follow his words and reluctantly agree. "So you are already so familiar with each other." Guo Jing suddenly understood. No wonder he had no friendship with the Golden Snake King, who rose like a comet, but took such a big risk to save him and his wife. "It's not just familiar. I know her so well that I have tasted every inch of her body." Chapter 718. Guo Jing was surprised at first, but then he said happily, so Song Xiaoxia and Fu know each other. In fact, Guo Jing had always wanted to betroth his daughter to Yanghua. Unfortunately, Yanghua had colluded with the Golden Man, which had disappointed him greatly. Moreover, Huang Rong had mentioned to him that there was a marriage alliance between Guo Fu and Song Qingshu. At first, he was still a little hesitant, but this time he was saved by Song Qingshu. He saw with his own eyes that not only was he talented, but he was also highly skilled in martial arts. How could he not be satisfied? He answered subconsciously, Song Xiaoxiao is a young hero, of course I don't mind. Seeing that her husband did not understand what Song Qingshu meant by family, Huang Rong was angry and anxious. She couldn't help but whine, Brother Jing. She was willing to suffer all this herself. But how could she let her daughter fall into the clutches of evil? If she really took Song Qingshu as her son-in-law, wouldn't that be inviting a wolf into the house? Guo Jing was startled, thinking that his wife was reminding him of something. He immediately realized why he felt strange. Could it be that what Song Qingshu said was a marriage proposal? But it was too rash to bring it up like this. Song Xiaoxia, Fu is still young, and I still need to ask her opinion. This matter. Huang Rong let out a sigh of relief. She was about to find a reason to reject the marriage when Song Qingshu said with a smile, That's only right. Of course we should ask Fu-er's opinion first. But I heard that Hero Gui said he wanted to cut off Fu-er's arm. Hearing that he was interested in her daughter, Huang Rong was anxious and wanted to say something. But when she heard Song Qingshu's last sentence, she immediately changed her mind. It would be good to use him to get Brother Jing to give up on that idea. Guo Jing laughed bitterly and said, Young hero Song, I won't hide it from you. My daughter is a good person, but she's too arrogant and willful. That's why she's made such a big mistake. He then told him about how Guo Fu had chopped off Yangguo's hand. Song Qingshu naturally knew the reason behind it, but he still pretended to be hearing it for the first time. He replied, Hero Guo, this time Yanghua is colluding with the genes. Speaking of which, your daughter is still doing the people a favor. Huang Rong agreed with him for the first time. She had never liked Yanghua and could not understand why her husband cared so much about him. Guo Jing let out a long sigh. Guo'er's father died because of us. Now that Fu-er has cut off one of his arms, I'm afraid it's because of this that he's on a path of no return. Fu-er is the main culprit. Hearing Guo Jing criticize her precious daughter, Huang Rong could not help but get angry. Brother Jing. Song Qingshu patted her on the back, gesturing for her to calm down. Hero Guo, you don't need to take it to heart. Since Fu-er was the cause of this incident, then Fu-er's matter is my matter. I will take full responsibility for this matter. How can I do that? Guo Jing looked embarrassed. Why would I cut off Song Xiaoxia's arm? Huang Rong, who was standing to the side, blushed. If you knew what he did to your wife, you wouldn't just cut off one of his arms. Song Qingshu saw that her cheeks were flushed red, making her look especially charming. He could roughly guess what she was thinking, so he smiled at her and replied, Hero Guo, you've misunderstood. How could I push Hero Guo into such an unjust situation? Then what does Song Xiaoxia mean? Guo Jing was startled. Song Qingshu slowly answered, Actually, Yanghua and I are friends for a while. He told her about how he saved Xiao Long Nu and continued, I saved Xiao Long Nu's life. For my sake, he will not pursue the matter of Fu-er. Huang Rong was overjoyed. That's great. Guo loved Xiao Long Nu so much. If he knew that you saved her, he would be willing to forgive you. Huang Rong suddenly thought of Xiao Long Nu's beautiful face. She couldn't help but think, with that bastard personality, I don't believe that he won't fall for Xiao Long Nu. Xiao Long Nu's beauty shocked me. Thinking about how she had tried to persuade Xiao Long Nu as an elder, she felt her cheeks burn. If both of them were conquered by the same man, how could she face him again? Xiao Long Nu. Guo Jing sighed. With Guo'er's deep feelings for Xiao Long Nu, it is very likely that he will not pursue the matter. However, they are still master and disciple. This is against the law. Huang Rong trembled at his words and turned to look at Song Qingshu. She found that he was looking at her with a smile that was not a smile. She was both embarrassed and angry. She wanted to hide in a hole. Against the law? Wrong. Do you think what we're doing is against the law? Song Qingshu's hateful voice sounded in her mind again. It wasn't just a violation of etiquette. It was simply shocking and sensational. Huang Rong wanted to grab the table next to her and slap that bastard's face, but she knew that she could only think about it. Hero Gua is right. They are master and disciple. To offend one's superior like this is against the law. As Song Qingshu spoke, he poked Huang Rong a few times. Huang Rong's body trembled, and she didn't have the energy to scold him. Guo has gone astray. I only regret that I didn't teach him well. Guo Jing was agitated and triggered the poison in his body. He spat out a mouthful of black blood. Brother Jing, even though Huang Rong was tormented by Song Qingshu to the point that she wanted to die immediately, she still had half of her attention on her husband. Seeing that the blood he spat out was completely black and smelly, how could she not know that the poison was extremely potent? Madame Guo, don't panic. I'm here. Hearing Song Qingshu's voice, Huang Rong didn't feel so hateful for the first time. Instead, her chaotic heart gradually calmed down. I beg you, save him. As long as you can save him, I won't argue with you anymore. Huang Rong pulled on Song Qingshu's sleeve and begged. Guo Jing was trying to circulate his qi to suppress the poison and didn't notice the strangeness in his wife's words. Although he had completely obtained Huang Rong's body, and although she was momentarily lost in the pleasure of her body every time, Song Qingshu knew that deep in her heart, she had always been resisting in her own way. This was the first time she had ever begged him with such soft words. Song Qingshu nodded. Okay. With that, he quickly sealed several of Guo Jing's vital acupoints, and then a powerful and majestic true qi entered his body. Perhaps it was because Song Qingshu was circulating his qi, but his body unknowingly swelled up. Huang Rong let out a cry and quickly covered her mouth, afraid that she would disturb the two. After a while, the two of them were emitting hot air. Huang Rong saw that her husband's forehead was covered in sweat and felt sorry for him. She took out a handkerchief and wiped it for him. Song Qingshu naturally knew what she was doing and couldn't help but coldly snort. I also have sweat on my head. Why don't you wipe it for me? Huang Rong bit her lips. After hesitating for a moment, she finally reached out with her handkerchief. However, Song Qingshu took the opportunity to hug her shoulders and pull her to his chest. He lowered his head and kissed her tender and beautiful red lips. Chapter 719. Feeling the strength of his wife's hand, Guo Jing asked curiously, Rong, what's wrong? Huang Rong wanted to answer, but her mouth was blocked by Song Qingshu. How could she speak? Rong, seeing that his wife didn't answer, Guo Jing felt even more strange. Huang Rong was on the verge of tears. Just when she didn't know what to do, Song Qingshu finally let go of her lips. She was slightly out of breath. No, it's nothing. I'm just worried about you. Hearing her excuse, Song Qingshu smiled even more happily. Seeing his smile, Huang Rong felt ashamed. But now that things had come to this, she didn't have any other thoughts. Her only thought was to cover up this matter and not let her husband know. Song Xiaoxia, I really don't know how to thank you for using your true qi to force the poison out of my body. Hearing that his wife was fine, Guo Jing felt relieved and immediately said to Song Qingshu, Hero Gua, you're too kind. I've actually already received my payment. Song Qingshu's other hand reached into the front of his clothes and played with the heart-stopping softness. He suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Huang Rong secretly cursed him for being shameless, but now she could only bite her lips and try to suppress the raging waves in her body. She was afraid that if she made a sound, her husband would hear something. You received your payment? Guo Jing was very confused. Your wife has already given me my payment. Hero Gua, you can ask her yourself. Song Qingshu said and winked at Huang Rong. Huang Rong was so angry that she almost fainted. Rong, Guo Jing asked as expected. Huang Rong fiercely glared at Song Qingshu. Unfortunately, she had to answer her husband's question. In a hurry, she hurriedly explained, Jing, brother, I helped Song Xiaoxia before. This time, he saw that we were in trouble, So he helped us. Huang Rong finished speaking and closed her eyes. Two streams of clear tears flowed down her smooth, jade-like cheeks. She mourned in her heart. If she hadn't come to Kaifeng this time, so many things wouldn't have happened. Guojing nodded. Song Xiaoxiao risked his life to help us this time. He is indeed a man of great righteousness. Song Qingshu smiled. After exchanging some pleasantries with him, he said to Huang Rong using secret voice sending, Rong, is really a female Zhuge. What you said is beautiful. Although you told the truth, your husband is completely in the dark. What truth did I say? Huang Rong glared at him coquettishly. Song Qingshu seemed to be aware of her thoughts. He continued, Song Mao came to the Jin kingdom without a female companion. Rong, you helped me solve the loneliness in my body. Isn't that a favor? Huang Rongxiao blushed. She originally meant to refer to the time when she helped him at the Golden Snake Camp. But with his explanation, it really seemed like she was purposely making a pun in front of her husband, making herself look like a fickle woman. For a moment, she felt wronged, and tears streamed down her face. Song Qingshu reached out and gently wiped her cheeks. He continued using secret voice sending, Ronger, I know you must hate me now. But have you ever thought that if it weren't for me, your ending would be even more miserable? Wan Yinliang would also play with you like this, and he definitely wouldn't keep his promise to let your husband go. At that time, not only would you lose your innocence, but you would also lose your husband. Do you still think your current situation is miserable? At least he wouldn't humiliate me in front of Brother Jing like you did. Huang Rong was annoyed, but soon she became uncertain. According to the information from the beggar sect, Wan Yinliang was a licentious and lecherous man. His methods were even worse than Song Qingshu's. It would not be surprising if he violated her in front of Brother Jing. Huang Rong had to admit that Song Qingshu's words were indeed reasonable. At least Brother Jing was safe now. She also accidentally gave her body to him. It did not make much difference if they did it more or less, as long as no one else knew about it. Thinking of this, Huang Rong's tormented heart finally calmed down. After a moment of hesitation, she hooked her arms around Song Qingshu's neck and whispered in his ear, Don't be distracted anymore. It's easy to make mistakes. If you want it in the future, I'll give it to you. Now let go of me and focus on forcing the poison out of Brother Jing. Song Qingshu shook his head. Rong, in fact, you misunderstood me. My cultivation method is a little special. Being intimate with you not only won't distract me, but it will also strengthen the Jinqi in my body. The poison in Hirogua's body is very strong. Only with the help of the pure Yin Qi in your body can I barely deal with the poison in his body. Otherwise, do you really think I'm such a licentious and shameless person? Huang Rong was so angry that she almost fainted. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? He described such an absurd behavior in such a dignified way. Her lips moved slightly. You bastard, you are such a person. You've seen through me. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. Although I'm trying to make myself look good, I didn't lie to you. I can't suppress the poison in Hirogua's body even with my strength. I can only barely suppress it by combining yin and yang with you. If you don't agree, I'll withdraw. But if I can't save Hirogua, don't blame me. Looking at the evil smile on his face, Huang Rong wanted to bite him. What did he mean by withdrawing if she didn't agree? Even if she didn't agree, the two of them had already been intimate for so long. What was the point of withdrawing now? Moreover, if the poison in Brother Jing's body was disturbed, wouldn't he have an excuse? Do you want to continue or withdraw? Song Qingshu gently blew into her ear. Continue. Huang Rong bit her lip and snorted. If you can't cure Brother Jing, I won't let you off even if I have to risk my life. Okay, I'll definitely do my best until the day I die. Song Qingshu chuckled and pointed at the bed. Turn around. Huang Rong's face was like a peach blossom. She fiercely rolled her eyes at him. In the end, she stood up and stood by the bed, laying her body on the bed. Song Qingshu smiled faintly and lightly clapped his hands. Guojing turned around and faced the wall with his back to the bed. Song Qing-shu continuously transferred qi into Guo Jing's body to force out the poison. His other hand was placed on Huang Rong's back, supporting her body as he leaned against her. Huang Rong's body immediately tensed up. However, since she had already made her choice, she could only tightly close her lips and silently endure all of this. Right now, her only comfort was her husband's warm hands. She subconsciously interlocked her fingers with her husband's. Feeling the heat of his palms, her chaotic heart finally had something to rely on. However, not long after, her eyes gradually became blurred. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and no one knew what she was thinking. As Song Qing-shu forced the poison out of Guo Jing's body, he enjoyed his wife's body to his heart's content. An unprecedented feeling filled his chest. At this moment, he was in high spirits, as if the entire universe was under his control. Is this what it feels like to be possessed? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.